whoa, hold on. Yo, how long is this? 3 weeks ago? Doesn't it contain? Um, yeah, let's react to this. Sealed in the human body, but nobody knows its true identity. Okay.
The story began with the complete destruction of the Hilt clan. Their castle was covered in blood and black demonic flames while corpses filled every hallway. In the
Right,
middle of that massacre stood one man alone, Lavis
right.
Vindica, the feared
Mm.
prince of the Vindica bloodline. The final survivor of the Hilt clan crawled across the ground while coughing blood and asked if Lavis truly believed he could escape after killing everyone there. Lavis looked down at him coldly before asking if he seriously thought he came there without knowing all the crimes the Hilt clan had committed. According to him, this was never a massacre. It was simply an execution. The survivor's eyes widened in horror before Lavis burned him alive with black flames, completely exterminating the Hilt bloodline. However,
Cora.
wiping out one of the noble clans of the demon realm created massive consequences. Soon after, Lavis was dragged before the throne of the demon king himself, Gamodare Vindica, who was also his father, while the 12 Black Thrones silently watched from the sides. Gamodare demanded to know how Lavis dared to massacre an entire clan without permission. He explained that Lavis had disturbed the order of the demon realm, and acted like a foolish executioner instead of an investigator. But Lavis showed no fear at all. He argued that the Hilt clan had committed endless crimes while everyone ignored them. He mocked the nobles for pretending to uphold justice while allowing corruption to spread throughout the demon realm. Gamodare
Mm.
calmly replied that there were strict laws governing executions and that Lavis had no right to act based on his own judgment. Lavis laughed in response and claimed that the demon realm had always been ruled by darkness consuming weaker darkness. According to him, survival was the only true law demons followed. He also believed the Hilt clan planned to seize the throne eventually, and insisted that exterminating them was necessary for the survival of the Vindica bloodline itself. He even reminded Gamodare that he was originally sent there as an investigator, because nobody else dared oppose the Hilt clan. Despite everything Lavis said, Gamodare remained silent for a long moment before finally announcing that the judgment had already been decided together with the 12 Black Thrones. Lavis was sentenced to exile in the human world for violating the laws of the demon realm and annihilating the Hilt clan. For the first time, Lavis completely lost his composure. His eyes widened in disbelief as he demanded to know if his father was truly serious. Gamodare explained that Lavis would live among humans with his powers sealed and learn the true dignity of the Vindica bloodline there. Lavis furiously argued that he had only destroyed the Hilt clan's bodies and not their souls, meaning they could still reincarnate eventually, but nobody listened to him anymore. The 12 Black Thrones surrounded Lavis and activated ancient magic circles.
Say
Chains
what
of black
now?
flames wrapped around his body as he screamed in rage and cursed everyone around him. He
Oh,
repeatedly shouted that he had done nothing
no,
wrong and refused to accept the punishment.
no.
One of the Black Thrones, named Banbei, mocked him before burning half his face with demonic flames and sarcastically wishing him a pleasant stay in the human world. Moments later, the flames completely engulfed Lavis and his body disappeared from the demon realm forever. The rules of exile were absolute. He had to live inside the body he was given in the human world. He was forbidden from killing humans or taking his own life. If he broke either rule, his soul would be destroyed permanently. Lavis suddenly woke up inside a small room and immediately jumped out of bed while gasping for air. Although the pain from the flames was gone, something felt terribly wrong. He looked down at his trembling hands and realized they were far too weak and fragile. He angrily slapped himself in the face while trying to process what had happened. He couldn't believe he had truly been
You're a human, Bodigi. You're a human. No more demon time. It's human time now, boy.
exiled to the human world. He also swore that the first thing he would do after returning to the demon realm was rip off Bambi's horns personally. The moment he stood up, his legs nearly collapsed beneath him. His entire body ached terribly, and even breathing felt uncomfortable. Lavis looked around in
Oh,
disgust.
hell no. Oh, hell no. Let's go.
Because the human world lacked sulfur and demonic energy completely. While he was still trying to understand the situation, the bedroom door suddenly opened and a young girl rushed inside. The moment she saw him standing, tears filled her eyes and she immediately hugged him tightly while crying from happiness. She said she thought he would never wake up again. Lavis froze in confusion because he had no idea who she was. Soon after, a woman entered the room as well and tearfully called him Mijo, revealing the name of the human whose body he now occupied.
Mijo? He's Spanish? He's he's Hispanic? He's Latino? They don't look. Uh, they don't look Hispanic.
Lavis silently realized these people were probably Mijo's family. While he stood there,
Oh, that's his name. Thunderhead. I'm such a thunderhead. I thought I thought she meant like Mijo, like son, Mijo. Such a thunderhead, bro.
awkwardly, another man entered the room. Unlike the others, his expression was cold and emotionless. He stared directly at Lavis before telling him to come to his senses quickly and return to school tomorrow, because he had already spent an entire week unconscious in bed. Mijo's mother tried defending him by
Yes,
saying he was
sir.
still too weak, but the man immediately shut her down before leaving the room. Strangely, Lavis actually smiled after seeing him because for the first time since arriving in the human world, someone reminded him of a demon. The man's cold and oppressive aura felt strangely familiar to him. The next morning, Lavis went to school while Mijo's sister worriedly dropped him off. Lavis looked around the building in disgust and thought that even in the demon realm, schools had always been miserable places. He sat quietly in the classroom while planning how to eventually return to the demon realm and inherit the throne before the Vindica bloodline fell apart without him. But his thoughts were interrupted when two male classmates approached him from behind. One of them casually placed a hand on his shoulder and mockingly asked whether he brought the money he owed them. The moment
Oh hell no! Oh hell no! You got me fucked up. I'm about to ruin this man's whole career. What you mean money? I'm gonna be sick. That shit pissed me off. Come on, do something, Mijo.
the bully touched him, Mijo's memories suddenly flooded into Lavis's mind. He witnessed endless scenes of bullying and humiliation. Mijo had constantly been beaten, mocked and extorted by these classmates while silently enduring everything alone. Lavis finally understood why the body hurt so badly. Before he could react, one of the boys smacked him on the back of the head and mocked him for becoming even more pathetic after his coma. The bully then demanded that Mijo quickly pay his friendship fee. For the first time in his entire existence, someone weak enough to be considered an insect had dared to strike him. Lavis suddenly recalled one of his lessons from the Demon Academy. During class, the young demons were being taught about humans and why they were considered inferior creatures. One demon loudly exclaimed that humans looked disgusting, like weak invertebrates crawling on the ground. Another confidently claimed that humans probably smelled terrible too. Teacher Cynthia calmly nodded and agreed with every word. According to her, humans were infinitely vulgar beings who constantly hid their weakness behind lies, emotions, and hypocrisy. She also mocked them for worshipping both demons and angels despite understanding neither side. Back then, Lavis himself had coldly declared that such pathetic creatures should simply be burned alive. Cynthia smiled proudly at his answer
Whoa.
and told him that if he ever encountered a human, he should crush them immediately without hesitation.
Whoa, whoa,
Remembering
whoa.
those
Calm down,
lessons now
Jamal.
only filled him with even greater rage. A mere human had dared to put his hands on him. Lavis clenched his fists tightly before suddenly grabbing Taiwu by the hair and smashing his face
Boom!
directly into the desk.
Yeah!
Taiwu screamed in pain and cursed at him while desperately trying to pull away, but Lavis only looked at him with disgust while thinking that humans truly were stupid creatures. The moment Taiwo's friend Sung Jun saw this, he immediately rushed toward Lavis while shouting that Miho must have completely lost his mind. As Sung Jun swung his fist toward him, Lavis instantly noticed something strange. His sealed demonic power slightly reacted to the hostility directed at him. He effortlessly dodged Sung Jun's attack and calmly wondered if human aggression somehow stimulated magic. Curious about this discovery,
I'm in high school and I have absolutely no idea what I want to do for my career.
Well, maybe you should figure that out.
he decided to test it further. Lavis threw a punch
Boom!
directly into Sung Jun's face with overwhelming force, sending him flying straight into a row of lockers. The entire classroom fell silent in shock. Lavis slowly looked down at his own hand in confusion. According to the rules of exile, his demonic abilities should have been completely sealed in the human world. Yet his magic clearly reacted whenever violence or aggression appeared around him. While he was still thinking about this strange
What that mean, bro? What that mean? Maybe it's because he's just the main character. Let me throw this let me throw this food away. My bad, y'all. I'm not speaking Spanish right now. Wait, what are you saying? What am I saying? Mijo. Alright. Yeah, I'm gonna go do that. I'll be back, yeah. I think I've seen those. Where'd y'all go? Yeah? Oh, it would be good thing. I should take it. Maybe probably yeah. You gotta keep that grind, right? So I can buy you your toys. No more TV. No more TV. That's bad. So with Haley, your cousin over there, yeah, you watching TV. Right? What are you doing? What are you doing? Don't fall out. Oh, careful now. Was Matthias walking? Was that where I was here?
Yeah,
He was walking?
I told him, and that's when he started like talking.
About damn time, huh? Yeah. How much is it? 8 months. Damn, we already doing better than school. Smart. You got good one. Yo, I love that. Yeah. Not the best. Mostly the best fun. Because I don't really train my back. I just feel like I want to. So.
¿Y por qué no te?
Phenomenon. One of his classmates
Alright, let's go.
named Xian nervously called out to him and asked if he was really the same Miho they knew. Before
Nope.
Lavis could answer, Tai Wu grabbed a chair and charged at him in revenge. Another student shouted a warning, but Lavis reacted instantly. He turned around and kicked Tai Wu directly in the chest with enough force to knock the breath out of him completely. Tai Wu collapsed while gasping painfully for air, but Lavis calmly walked toward him without the slightest emotion. He repeated teacher Cynthia's words about humans becoming rude to hide their weakness and concluded that insults seemed to make them stronger somehow. As Tae-woo struggled to stand, Lavis pulled back his leg and kicked him directly in the jaw, knocking him unconscious instantly. Both Tae-woo and Songjun now lay defeated on the floor while the entire classroom stared at Miho in complete disbelief.
Look at that
Nobody could
motherfucker.
understand how the quiet and constantly bullied Miho had suddenly become this terrifying overnight. Meanwhile, Lavis smirked proudly and mentally mocked his father. If this was what humans called lying low, then it was honestly pathetic. He then slowly looked around the classroom with an ominous smile and asked if anyone else wanted to insult him too. The students immediately avoided eye contact in fear. Even Xion looked completely shocked because he never imagined Miho was secretly this strong. After hesitating for a moment, Xion cautiously approached him and asked if he was okay. Lavis stared at him silently before remembering that this human had actually tried to warn him earlier. Compared to the others, Xion seemed far more useful. Lavis quietly decided that perhaps this boy was suitable enough to become his servant in the future. With an eerie smile, he simply replied that everything was fine. By late afternoon, classes finally ended, and the two of them left school together. Xion excitedly praised him the entire way, saying it was incredible how Miho defeated both bullies alone. He even jokingly asked if Lavis had secretly reincarnated from another world like the heroes from webtoons and fantasy novels. Hearing the word reincarnation almost made Lavis
Hold on now. He know too much. He know too much. Hold on. I'm joking.
panic for a moment, because he thought Xion had somehow discovered his true identity. Fortunately, Xion was simply obsessed with fantasy stories involving magic. While walking home, Lavis remembered a
too.
conversation he once had with his demon friend before exile. Back then, his friend warned him that demons absolutely could not kill humans in the human world, because doing so would result in complete soul destruction. Lavis had mocked the idea at the time and argued that humans constantly killed each other anyway. His friend explained that humans were fragile creatures protected by laws beyond demons themselves and warned him never to underestimate those rules. But back then, Lavis arrogantly replied that none of it mattered because he never planned to visit the human world in the first place. Now fate had completely humiliated him. Lavis
Well,
looked up at the evening sky and quietly wondered how he was supposed to silence annoying humans if killing them was forbidden. At that moment, Shifan suddenly admitted that he wished reincarnation actually existed because he wanted to escape this miserable life and wake up in another world someday. Lavis immediately sensed genuine pain hidden behind those words. Shifan awkwardly laughed and admitted he already knew fantasies like that were impossible, but life had become difficult enough to make him dream about escaping reality. Hearing this relieved Lavis slightly, because it confirmed that Xion still had no idea who he truly
bro, Cheyenne is just like me, bro. Yeah, it would be tough as fuck if I reincarnate into another world. But life ain't like that.
was. However, when Xion sincerely called him cool, Lavis physically shuddered in disgust. Receiving praise from a mere human felt deeply shameful to a proud demon noble like him. That night, Lavis lay in bed while
Ew.
thinking about the strange reaction his magic had shown earlier. A demon trapped inside a human body should not have been capable of using power at all, yet his magic clearly awakened whenever violence and aggression surrounded him. Slowly, a confident smile spread across his face. Perhaps even exile could not completely suppress Lavis Vindica. But the moment he thought this, intense pain suddenly spread throughout his body. He immediately collapsed onto the bed while realizing Miho's weak human body could barely withstand even traces of demonic power. He had only lived as a human for a single day, yet his body already felt tortured beyond belief. Despite that, exhaustion overtook him instantly, and he fell asleep within seconds. The next day passed quietly, until classes finally ended again. Lavis and Xion left school together, while Xion happily said it felt nice, finally experiencing a peaceful school life for once. He gratefully admitted that nobody dared bother them anymore, thanks to Miho. Lavis only snorted in disappointment, and honestly admitted he preferred when people fought him because he still wanted to test his magical power further. Almost immediately after saying that, someone suddenly called out to them. Lavis turned around and saw Taiwu standing there alongside several older students.
You talking to me?
Clearly, he had called for backup after yesterday's humiliation. One of the older boys stepped forward and coldly asked if Lavis was the one who touched his younger brother. According to him, they
Yeah,
had
that
spent
me.
all this time protecting Taiwu, while
What you gonna
only
do about
asking
it?
for small payments in return. Yet Miho dared repay that kindness by beating him up. Shichun immediately turned pale with fear, but Lavis looked genuinely excited instead. A huge smile spread across his face as he casually admitted that yes, he really did beat Taiwu. The older boy angrily ordered him to follow them. Soon they arrived at an abandoned construction site. Taiwu's older brother immediately
It's like those motherfuckers who love to fight. Like when their friends say, "Bro, we're gonna jump." Videos! Oh my god, this is the fucking best day ever! Where the fuck are they, bro? How long are they gonna be here? At what place? What time? Come on, let's go off the fucking ride! That's fucking funny.
scolded him for returning home looking like a weak loser after getting beaten so badly. Taiwu's nervously apologized while lowering his head in shame. After that, the older brother slowly turned toward Lavis and asked what exactly he should do with him. According to him, if he ignored this situation, he would become a terrible older brother who
How to not react like Ayana Koji. Don't react. No emotions. He the toughest.
failed to protect his family. He then poked Lavis in the forehead and mockingly asked whether Miho's mother taught him to beat up his own friends. Lavis smirked coldly and calmly answered that perhaps she really did. The bully let out an irritated laugh before calling him insane. He immediately swung his fist toward Lavis's face in anger, but Lavis effortlessly caught his wrist midair. Lavis tightened his grip around the bully's wrist until a loud crunch echoed through the construction site. The older boy screamed in pain and desperately tried pulling his hand free, but Lavis's grip felt completely inhuman. Before anyone could react, Lavis suddenly slammed his fist directly into the guy's face. Every punch carried terrifying force as Lavis remembered his mother from the demon realm. She was known among demons as the one who poisoned tongues themselves, the creator of curses and insults. According to her, violence chained the flesh while poisonous words corroded the soul. Humans desperately clung to both things because they were weak creatures terrified of reality. Taewoo and the others panicked after seeing their leader getting beaten down so easily. They shouted at each other to stop standing around and quickly finish Miho off together. Hearing this only made Lavis smile wider. If hostility truly strengthened his demonic energy, then fighting multiple opponents at once was even better for him. His eyes flashed with excitement as he rushed straight toward the group. Every movement was precise and brutal. One punch shattered a nose, another sent someone collapsing to the ground instantly, and a single kick folded another bully in half. The construction site quickly turned into a complete massacre. Shai-chan stood frozen in disbelief while watching the scene unfold. He could barely recognize the same Miho who used to get beaten every single day. Now those same bullies were dropping one after another without even being able to fight back properly. After several minutes, the fight finally ended, or rather the beating ended. All the bullies lay scattered across the ground groaning in pain while Lavis stood alone in the center of the construction site. For the first time since arriving in the human world, he genuinely felt better. Suddenly he understood why humans constantly resorted to violence and insults. His uncle in the demon realm had always claimed that violence was humanity's true gift, while his mother specialized in inventing curses and hateful words. Back then, Lavis thought those ideas were pointless, but now he finally understood. Humans released their darkness through conflict, and somehow that darkness fed his own demonic power. Meanwhile, hidden nearby, a small rat silently observed everything. However, this was no ordinary rat. It was a lesser demon sent from the demon realm. Everything it witnessed was being transmitted directly to Lavis's uncle, Varkan Vindika. The demon calmly watched the scene through a magical bowl while Lavis's demon friend stood beside him with a smile on his face. He proudly explained that instead of placing a stone of restriction into Lavis's body during exile, he secretly implanted a stone of demonic blood instead.
Yeah!
Lavis could survive.
W Uncle! W Unk! That's what I'm talking about, Unk. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. That's W Unk right there. He's a real guy right there. That's W. That's W man. I can never thank him enough, man. That's the W, bro. That's the W Uncle.
While slowly regaining power in the human world. Varkan laughed in amusement while admitting he was still shocked that Lavis truly exterminated the entire Hilt clan alone. Lavis's friend calmly replied that his nephew would never rest until he achieved what he believed was justice. According to him, nobody in existence could break Lavis Vindika's stubbornness. Varkan sighed and commented that Gamadair truly was heartless for throwing his own son into the human world without hesitation. But Lavis's friend only shrugged and said that forceful subjugation was the only method that ever worked on someone like Lavis. After all, that philosophy itself came directly from the Demon King. According to Varkan, only criminals whose sins were considered too severe even by demon standards were exiled there. Lavis would eventually face true despair among humans. He then asked when that troublesome child managed to grow up enough to create chaos on this scale. Lavis's friend spread his hands over the bowl while gathering more demonic energy into it. Countless lesser demons silently watched from the shadows as the magical image of Lavis flickered before them. Varkan smiled with anticipation, and quietly wondered how long it would take before his nephew experienced true darkness. Lavis sat inside a small restaurant together with Xian. The two of them were eating extremely spicy tteokbokki, while Xian excitedly replayed the construction site fight over and over again. Lavis casually took another bite before confidently asking if this weak spice was supposed to imitate hellfire. However, Xian stared at him nervously because tears were literally streaming down Lavis's face. Lavis immediately claimed it was just sweat from his eyes and stubbornly continued eating despite the pain. According to him, a demon who ran away from hellfire was no demon at all. At that moment, Xian's phone suddenly rang. The name Jinji appeared on the screen and his face instantly turned pale. Lavis immediately noticed the fear in his expression and asked what was wrong. but Cheyenne quickly
That.
stood up and claimed he had urgent business to handle. Even
Gotta
so,
call my
Lavis clearly noticed
phone.
the trembling in his hands before Cheyenne hurried away. Later that night, deep inside a hidden basement tattoo parlor,
From idea to submission, empower.
Papa, these ads, man.
They could jumpstart ideas.
a man screamed in agony while being restrained. A dangerous-looking woman named Jin Ji calmly worked on his forehead with a tattoo machine while warning him not to move unless he wanted more pain. According to her, all of this could have been avoided if he had simply returned the money he owed on time. Once she finished, she smiled proudly and revealed the word thief, tattooed across his forehead. Her assistant then announced that Shine had arrived. Dichan nervously entered the room while trembling with fear. Jinji immediately demanded to know why he took so long. She grabbed
Oh, that, bro. Oh, that, bro. Oh, that. Who that? Who that? Who is that?
his face and forced him to stare directly at the ruined man lying on the couch. According to her, the tattoo was a permanent mark for thieves who failed to repay debts. She then coldly asked how Cheyenne's own assignment was progressing, and whether everything was still going according to plan. Without taking his eyes off the tattoo, Cheyenne shakily answered that there had been some complications. The moment he said that, Jinji slapped him hard enough to knock him to the floor. She asked if he seriously believed this was all some kind of joke. Then she picked up the tattoo machine again. Her men grabbed Cheyenne's
Whoa,
arms
whoa,
and
whoa,
restrained
whoa,
him while
whoa, whoa, whoa. Ooh, hold on now. Yo, chill out.
she pressed the buzzing needle close to his skin. Terrified, Cheyenne begged her not to tattoo him too. Jinji calmly warned him that if he failed again, he would end up just like the man on the couch. After leaving the tattoo parlor, Cheyenne returned home and sat in front of his computer in silence. His hands trembled above the keyboard while he stared at a flash drive lying beside him. Whatever assignment Jinji forced him to complete was clearly dangerous. He repeatedly wondered whether he should continue at all, but fear eventually forced him to keep working. At the same time, Lavis was suffering in an entirely different way. He lay on his bed while clutching his stomach and swinging his legs around in pain. The spicy food completely destroyed his body. His stomach burned so badly that he genuinely felt like he swallowed lava. Even his muscles ached from the earlier fight. Lavis stared at the ceiling in frustration while realizing Miho's body was unbelievably weak. He had only fought
Mijo.
for a short time, yet his shoulders already felt like they were falling apart. But giving up was impossible for someone like Lavis Vindica. He suddenly removed his shirt and started doing push-ups in the middle of the night while sweating heavily. According to him, no amount of pain could break the pride of the Vindica bloodline. If this human body was weak, then he would force it to become stronger no matter what. The next morning, Xian arrived at school looking exhausted and nervous. He quietly stared at the flash drive in his hand while remembering Jinji's threats from the previous night. His thoughts spiraled in fear until someone suddenly placed a hand on his shoulder. Xian screamed in panic before turning around and realizing it was only Lavis. Confused, Lavis asked why he was acting so terrified. For a brief moment, Xian considered asking Miho for help. After witnessing his strength yesterday, part of him believed Lavis might actually be capable of saving him, but he quickly rejected the idea. No matter how strong Miho suddenly became,
Do I call him Mijo or Lavis? Lavis is tough, but I won't call him Mijo. I'm gonna call him Mijo.
getting involved with Jinji was far too dangerous. While Lavis tried figuring out what Xian was hiding, a strange girl suddenly walked past them in the hallway. The moment Lavis sensed her presence, his expression changed completely. There was something incredibly familiar about her scent. Before he could understand why, the girl suddenly collapsed face first onto the floor as if she lost consciousness. Xian immediately rushed over in panic and carefully rolled her onto her side. The moment the girl opened her eyes, both boys froze. Lavis immediately sensed something terrifying hidden inside her, a demonic aura. But that was impossible. Humans were not supposed to possess demonic energy. A teacher quickly arrived after hearing the commotion and carried the unconscious girl toward the infirmary. As they passed by him, Lavis suddenly noticed a tattoo visible on the girl's arm, the Hilt clan crest. Lavis's eyes widened instantly. Why would a human girl carry the symbol of the clan he exterminated with his own hands? Without hesitation, he decided to investigate the mystery himself.
Now that's some serious shit. What? What's this? W? I got smoothie, y'all. I don't know what the hell is this. I got smoothie. I got smoothie, y'all. What is this? Mango smoothie, 25% sugar. Hold on now. Hold on. Let me put this Coke over there. Mango smoothie. Let's taste test this shit. Hold on now! Hold on! That shit buzz, bro. That shit buzz. Woo! That shit buzz. That shit buzz. That shit buzz. Alright, let's continue reacting, bro.
Self. That evening, Lavis headed straight toward the hospital, where the strange girl had been taken earlier. The moment he arrived outside her room, a young policewoman guarding the entrance stopped him and politely explained that no visitors were allowed because the patient needed rest. She asked whether he was the girl's friend. Lavis slowly turned toward her and stared directly into her eyes. Even with only tiny fragments of magic available to him, he could still cast low-level demonic spells. A dark aura flickered through his gaze for a brief moment before the woman's eyes rolled backward slightly. She quietly returned to her seat beside the door and completely stopped reacting to her surroundings as if her consciousness had temporarily disappeared. Lavis calmly opened the hospital room door while thinking that even pathetic crumbs of magic were still useful. The girl immediately looked toward him with annoyance after hearing the door close behind him and demanded to know who he was. Lavis coldly replied by asking who she really was instead. Confused, the girl started complaining about him entering without permission. Lavis suddenly grabbed her wrist and forcefully pulled her closer. The girl cried out in pain while trying to pull away, but Lavis ignored her completely. His attention remained fixed on the strange tattoo burned into her
Where'd you
skin.
get that shit?
He demanded to know how a lowly human dared carry the crest of the Hilt clan. The terrified girl insisted that he was speaking nonsense, and claimed she knew nothing about demons or noble clans. Lavis tightened his grip slightly and warned her that if she wanted to avoid serious trouble, she needed to tell him the truth immediately. His terrifying gaze made her body tremble uncontrollably.
Woo! That's that aura. That's the hockey.
For a brief second, she even thought she saw the silhouette of demonic horns behind him. Panicking, she nervously whispered the word demon beneath her breath. Lavis immediately ordered her to speak properly, which only made her more frightened. Finally, she admitted that she truly did not understand the meaning of the tattoo. According to her, a woman named Jinji told her that anyone wanting to join their group needed to receive the mark. Jinji also promised her special diet pills that would supposedly help her lose weight quickly. The moment Lavis heard this, his expression darkened. The scent coming from this girl felt deeply familiar to him. He had definitely encountered it somewhere before in the demon realm. Suddenly, old memories resurfaced inside his mind. Back when he was younger, Lavis once sneaked into a forbidden underground tower alongside his demon friend. The deeper they descended into the darkness, the more nervous his friend became. He repeatedly warned Lavis that they were entering a restricted area, and begged him to turn back before they got caught. But Lavis only smirked and mocked him for acting like a coward.
You're a
Embarrassed,
pussy.
his friend angrily insisted that he was not scared. He simply did not want punishment from the elders. Lavis casually placed his hands behind his head and told him to leave alone then. But despite his fear, the other boy refused because he knew Lavis would probably cause trouble without supervision. The two eventually reached the bottom floor after descending for what felt like forever. A heavy silence filled the corridor until Lavis suddenly stopped walking. He sensed something strange nearby. Ahead of them lay a massive underground chamber, and right in the center rested a body completely covered in flowers.
Who that?
Lavis's friend instantly panicked and asked what the hell they were looking at, but Lavis boldly walked closer without hesitation. As they approached, they finally recognized the corpse. It was Jeremy Hilt, or at least what remained of him. Flowers were growing directly from his flesh, as if feeding on the corpse itself. Lavis crouched down curiously and reached toward one of the flowers despite his friend desperately warning him not to touch anything. The moment Lavis ripped the flower out by its roots, a disgusting rotten stench filled the air. His friend hid behind him in fear while staring at the moving roots squirming like living worms. Horrified, he realized they had discovered devouring flowers, forbidden demonic parasites capable of consuming bodies from the inside. Now years later, Lavis realized the exact same scent surrounded the girl lying before him in the hospital bed. The terrified girl begged him for help, while trembling violently, but Lavis silently looked out the hospital window instead. Hanging upside down from a nearby tree branch was a black bat watching him carefully. Lavis immediately sensed that it was another demonic familiar spying on him. Somewhere far away, its owner quietly thought that they would meet soon enough. After leaving the hospital, Lavis headed directly toward Jinji's tattoo parlor. As he stood outside the basement entrance, countless thoughts raced through his mind. A human girl carrying the Hilt clan symbol alongside the scent of devouring flowers could not simply be coincidence. Meanwhile, several gang members walked through the underground basement while discussing Cheyenne. One of them wondered why their leader Young Mu cared so much about a random high school student. Another casually explained that Young Mu was not interested in Cheyenne himself but rather the mysterious app he created. One of the gang members then pulled out a strange blue candy and joked about how modern gangs even used advanced technology now. The others immediately recognized the candy and became nervous. They warned him to stop eating Bluebo because it was a brand new product with dangerous side effects. Someone even mentioned what happened to the girl from yesterday after taking it. However, the guy simply laughed and claimed he did not care, as long as the drug gave him a good time. At that exact moment, Lavis stepped out from around the corner. The smell instantly hit him. It was the same scent again. Demonic energy mixed with the Hilt clan mark. The gang members immediately stopped talking after noticing him. Lavis calmly asked whether they also received their tattoos from Jinji. The man holding the blue candy laughed mockingly and asked if this random kid was one of her friends. Then he casually patted Lavis on the cheek while telling him to show respect toward his elders.
Oh, hell no. You got me fucked up touching me like that. If you grab me, I'ma bite you. If you grab me, I'ma bite you. I don't think people understand. I'm a demon. I'm a demon. I'll really beat your ass. That would be me if I was Miho, but like, you know. We about to see this motherfucker get absolute beat the shit out of, bro.
That single touch instantly irritated Lavels.
Oh,
Without
yeah.
hesitation, he smacked the man's hand away
That
before
shit out
punching
my.
him directly in the face, hard enough to knock him unconscious immediately. The other gang members exploded in anger and demanded to know who sent him there. But instead of answering, Lavis simply punched another one in the face and sent him flying backward. A third attacker screamed curses while charging straight toward him. But Lavis effortlessly dodged the attack and struck him with terrifying accuracy. The man collapsed to the floor screaming in agony. The last remaining thug immediately panicked and pulled out a knife before lunging at Lavis. Lavis spun around and kicked him directly in the head with enough force to drop him instantly. Then he calmly demanded to know where Jinji was hiding. Suddenly the first man he punched slowly stood back up. But something was terribly wrong. His eyes bulged unnaturally from their sockets while drool poured from his mouth like a wild animal.
He took the candy, bro. He took the candy. That shit made him fucked up. Mm-mm. It's like steroids, but like 20 times more worse, maybe 50 times. I don't know. Fuck it.
Lavis narrowed his eyes in surprise because the demonic energy surrounding the man had become much stronger than before. The thug suddenly charged toward him like a rabid beast. Lavis quickly realized that the blue candy must have enhanced his physical abilities somehow. He tried stepping backward to avoid the attack but
Oh
accidentally
shit.
tripped over someone lying on the floor and lost his balance. The crazed man instantly jumped on top of him and raised his
Hell
fist
no.
to
You got me
strike.
fucked up.
For the first
You
time since arriving in the human world, Lavis cursed nervously. Meanwhile, deep inside another hidden room beneath the city, Jinji nervously stood before the true leader of the organization, Young Mu. She apologized and admitted that Xion still had not finished preparing the app they needed. One of her men quickly stepped in and claimed they explained everything much more clearly this time, so the app would definitely be completed soon. Young Mu silently held his forehead in annoyance and reminded them that they said the exact same thing last time too. Not only that, but someone had also been stealing their Bluebo products recently. Beside Jinji, a naked man knelt on the floor in humiliation while desperately begging for mercy. Tears streamed down his face as he repeatedly swore he would never make another mistake again. Young Mu quietly stared at the blue flowers resting inside a vase nearby, before slowly taking one
Are those the flowers?
into his hand. He calmly walked toward the terrified thief while the entire room fell silent. The man immediately realized what was about to happen. He shook his head hysterically and begged Young Mu to spare him, but Young Mu showed absolutely no emotion. In one swift motion, he drove the sharp flower stem directly into the man's eye socket. A single tear rolled down his cheek as blood poured from the ruined eye. Even Jinji became visibly terrified at the brutal sight unfolding before her. The thief weakly begged for mercy again, but Young Mu ignored him completely. He drove another flower stem into the man's face, causing blood to splatter across the room as agonized screams filled the air. Finally, the broken body collapsed onto the floor, twitching in unbearable pain.
GG's gang.
Young Mu calmly stated that there were no second chances in his organization. He hoped everyone present understood that clearly. Then he slowly turned toward Jinji and asked whether he was correct. Nervously swallowing, Jinji immediately agreed with him. Youngmu coldly ordered her to stop making excuses and bring him the completed app already. Unable to even look him in the eyes anymore, she quietly answered that she understood. The moment she left the room, Jinji immediately started calling Shine repeatedly. Her hands shook nervously while she screamed that every second mattered now. At the same time, Shine sat alone in front of his computer, desperately working while surrounded by endless lines of code. When his phone finally rang, he paused for a moment before picking it up. But the voice on the other end was not Jinji. It was Lavis. Lavis calmly explained that he originally wanted to investigate things himself, but the local gangsters refused to cooperate. Confused, Xian asked what exactly he was talking about. Lavis casually asked whether he knew Jinji. Hearing her name instantly made Xian panic. He demanded to know how Lavis discovered her. Lavis simply replied that he saw her name appear on Xian's phone earlier. Then he calmly asked whether Xian knew where she lived, because he needed to confirm something personally. Shi-chan immediately became even more nervous, and asked why Lavis was looking for her. Had those idiots really dragged him into this mess too? Lavis answered that nobody forced him. He went there by himself because he needed answers. He explained that he was currently standing inside Jinji's tattoo parlor, but she was nowhere to be found. While speaking on the phone, Lavis suddenly noticed a cat sitting strangely on the staircase nearby. The animal visibly flinched the moment he looked directly at it. Meanwhile, Xion hurriedly threw on a jacket and rushed toward the door of his apartment, while warning Lavis not to touch anything, no matter what. Before Lavis could even respond, Xion abruptly hung up. Lavis slowly turned back toward the cat. The creature's behavior felt incredibly unnatural. It looked less like a real cat, and more like something pretending to be one. Curious, Lavis casually walked over before grabbing the cat by the scruff of its neck. He calmly asked whether it understood him. The cat nervously meowed while trembling violently, but Lavis coldly ordered it to answer properly. Completely terrified, the cat instantly started speaking in human language. Lavis immediately began interrogating it. First there was a rat watching him, then a bat, now a cat. The creature nervously admitted that she was an observer sent from the demon realm. Her mission was to secretly monitor prisoners exiled to the human world. That was why she had been following him around this entire time. Lavis narrowed his eyes suspiciously. Her demonic aura felt unbelievably weak. He asked whether she was truly even a demon. The cat nervously asked how he noticed her so easily.
You're weak as fuck. Yeah, I'll be straight up, like, you're weak as fuck.
Lavis casually pointed out that she stood out too much. Even now, she was accidentally balancing on her hind legs like a human instead of behaving like an actual cat. Lavis sighed and realized questioning her further would probably waste time. Instead, he activated a small amount of magic and ordered the observer's true master to reveal himself through the connection. The cat's eyes immediately became blank. Far away in the demon realm, Lavis's demon friend smirked in amusement after feeling the spell activate. He admitted he expected Lavis to figure things out eventually, but not this quickly. The moment his image appeared through the cat's body, Lavis irritably called him an idiot and demanded to know whether this entire situation was his fault again. His friend casually asked why Lavis always acted so rude toward him despite their friendship. He also wondered what kind of chaos Lavis planned to create this time. However, Lavis instantly realized the demon was pretending not to know anything again. Knowing there was no point arguing, he sighed heavily and instead asked why things in the human world were so different from what he remembered. Most importantly, how was he still able to use magic? According to the exile laws, prisoners should have their powers completely sealed. His friend calmly explained that exceptions existed everywhere and assured him he would eventually understand everything himself. Lavis then immediately brought up the devouring flowers. Their scent filled the human world far too strongly. He already encountered those flowers once in the demon realm years ago, and they were considered forbidden even among demons. Hearing this, the demon friend's expression became more serious. He admitted that even officials in the demon realm already knew remnants of the Hilt clan somehow infiltrated the human world. Apparently, the creatures created by the Hilt family proved far more persistent than anyone expected. Lavis irritably asked whether this entire mess truly was connected to the Hilt clan again. Did their influence still survive even after extermination? The demon only laughed quietly, before explaining that the human world was no longer the same place it once was. According to him, it had become a breeding ground for conspiracies and hidden corruption. In other words, Lavis arrived at the perfect time to get involved. Lavis immediately demanded more answers. But before he could continue, the connection suddenly broke. The cat regained consciousness and nervously looked up at him again, while Lavis clicked his tongue in annoyance. Meanwhile, Jinji continued repeatedly calling Shan without success.
Hey!
Furious and panicked, she screamed that he was finished if he kept ignoring her. Eventually, she dialed another number instead. The person who answered was Xiong Jun, who was currently hanging around the computer club. Junji immediately ordered him to gather people and head toward the office because they were going to catch Shine personally. At the same time, Lavis looked back toward the cat and realized that if she truly worked as an observer, then she should possess detailed knowledge about the human world. The cat proudly confirmed that searching for prisoners across the human world was her specialty. Lavis then ordered her to reveal her true form. The observer looked shocked for a moment. Lavis threateningly asked whether he should force her instead. Terrified, she quickly obeyed. The cat pressed her paws together as light engulfed her
Damn,
body.
hold on now,
Moments
chill.
later, a small demoness emerged from the flash with nervous eyes and a timid smile. Lavis glanced at her once before bluntly remarking that she looked incredibly weak. Still, since his demon friend personally sent her, she probably had some use. He asked for her name. The demoness quietly lowered her head and admitted she did not have one. Without hesitation,
Knowing this shit, her age is probably 300 or like 500, 300 something. I don't know.
Lavis immediately named her street, since he literally
Your name is Street. That's crazy.
found her wandering around outside. Surprisingly,
Oh shit, my stomach hurt. I don't think I should have eaten that mango
the
smoothie.
demoness became extremely happy after receiving a name for the first time and enthusiastically thanked him. Lavis then ordered Street to explain everything she knew about the human world. Meanwhile, Xian sprinted desperately through the streets while praying he could reach Lavis before disaster happened. As he ran, painful memories resurfaced in his mind. Back when he won an app development competition, he felt happier than ever because all his hard work finally paid off. But the
That's
celebration
rubbish, man.
ended almost immediately after suspicious men suddenly approached him outside the building. Jinji recognized him instantly and laughed after hearing the winner's prize money was only a pathetic amount. She casually ordered her men to drag him into a car. Xian screamed while being forced inside. There he finally met Young Mu for the first time. Young Mu calmly pointed toward a seat stacked with 50 million won in cash and offered to buy Xian's app. But Xian refused immediately because the app was never meant to be sold. Hearing this answer caused Young Mu to pause quietly before saying that Xian's response was exactly what he expected. Those words terrified Xian even more than the money itself. Now, as he desperately rushed through the streets trying to protect Lavis from becoming involved, he suddenly crashed into a massive figure standing in his path. Quickly apologizing, Xian looked up and froze. It was Songjun. Songjun smirked coldly and admitted they did not even need to search for him anymore, because he walked right into them himself. Xian slowly looked around and saw Jinji approaching nearby with several gang members. Her expression burned with rage. After kidnapping Xian, Jinji dragged him deep into an underground basement and threw him inside a locked computer room. She coldly explained that his only job now was to sit there and monitor the app properly. Xian desperately tried asking her to wait and listen to him,
Hold
but
on.
Jinji immediately cut him off. She warned him that they were watching his every move from outside the room, so he
Wait. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something.
should not even think about trying anything clever. The heavy metal door slammed shut behind her. Achan slowly realized that his life was completely ruined. Meanwhile, Jinji and Songjun watched him through the observation window outside. Songjun skeptically asked whether Xian was really some genius developer, because honestly, he looked painfully slow while working. Jinji explained that according to Young Mu, the Blue Bow business could not properly function without Xian's program. Songjun looked confused and asked whether the app was really called I'm Here. In his opinion, the name sounded unbelievably stupid. Inside the room, one of the gang members shoved Xian into a chair and smacked the back of his head, ordering him to hurry up and work. Xian shakily launched the application. Judging from the logo and design, the app looked like a normal platform for making friends and dating nearby users. However, Young Mu suddenly entered the room and calmly explained the real purpose behind it. According to him, Xian's app was the core of their entire Blue Bow operation. First, they would collect massive amounts of customer data through the app. After that, controlling the market would become easy. The app's location sharing feature would allow them to expand Blue Bow distribution everywhere without effort. Songjun excitedly declared that they would finally be able to sell Blue Bow on a massive scale. Young Mu silently looked down at one of the blue candies resting in his hand and agreed. Soon they would spread their product across the entire world. The next day, the app
Nah, not without my boy. Not without my boy Mijo, bro. Mijo got that shit, and now he has Street now. Ooh.
exploded in popularity almost instantly. Students everywhere rushed to download it because the company promised 30,000 won cashback for every friend invited through referrals. Easy money attracted people like flies. Some students even pressured or threatened others into registering. On top of that, everyone who joined received a free diet supplement called Blue Bow as a welcome gift. The app proudly claimed the product was fully certified and safe. Of course, that was a complete lie. As evening arrived, Youngmu's subordinates celebrated their success enthusiastically. Jinji proudly checked the growing registration numbers on her phone while Xingjun admitted Youngmu truly understood business perfectly. However, Jinji quickly remembered the destruction of her tattoo parlor and angrily asked whether they still had not found the idiot responsible. One of the gang members awkwardly explained that the security cameras showed something strange. There was a bat blocking the camera. Jinji frowned in confusion and personally reviewed the footage herself. Sure enough, a bat stared directly into the camera lens the entire time, perfectly covering the view. On another camera, a rat appeared instead. Jinji cursed in frustration because the situation made absolutely no
W Street! Ah!
sense. At that moment, Songjun received a message and immediately informed her that the newest shipment of Blue Bow had arrived. Meanwhile, Lavis walked home from school together with Street. Along the way, he noticed her awkwardly trying to crawl through a tiny hole in a wall, while stuck halfway inside. Embarrassed, Street immediately apologized and returned to her humanoid form while nervously admitting she might have gained a little weight recently. Lavis then asked about the investigation he assigned her yesterday.
A little?
Instantly becoming proud of herself, Street explained that after a difficult search, she finally uncovered important information about Blue Bow. Yesterday, Lavis suspected the candy smelled similar to devouring flowers. According to Street's investigation, he was correct. Devouring flowers only bloom after consuming a living host, making their existence nearly impossible without organic material. The species itself was supposedly extinct even in the demon realm. So the biggest question remained, how did humans obtain them? Street explained that Blue Bow was secretly distributed under the disguise of diet supplements and health products. However, the manufacturing process remained heavily hidden, making it difficult even for demons to trace the exact ingredients. Levius irritably asked whether that meant she learned absolutely nothing useful. Panicking, Street quickly defended herself and insisted that was not true at all. Blue Bow had become incredibly popular recently, meaning huge amounts of the product were circulating everywhere. If they followed the traces of demonic energy left behind by the candy, they could eventually locate the source. Lavis immediately poked her forehead in annoyance and said she should have taken him there from the start. Street nervously admitted that Lavis's demon friend ordered her to wait for him first. Hearing that instantly irritated Lavis. He narrowed his eyes and demanded to know whether she had been reporting every single one of his actions back to Bambi this entire time. Street apologized repeatedly and explained she was only a lesser demon forced to obey both of them. Lavis then gave her a choice, right there and then. Who was her true master, him or Banbei? Street froze nervously, because choosing sides between higher demons was terrifying. But Lavis calmly promised that if she chose him, he would personally elevate her beyond being a weak lesser demon forever. Hearing that, Street immediately transformed into a proud noble-like posture before kneeling respectfully and swearing absolute loyalty to Lavis Vindica. Satisfied, Lavis smirked and accepted her oath by placing his hand over her head. The moment his demonic magic touched her, Banbi instantly lost his connection to Street completely. Somewhere far away in the demon realm, Banbi angrily realized Lavis stole his observer right out from under him. Meanwhile, Lavis victoriously told him to stay out of his business from now on. That same night, Lavis and Street followed the demonic energy trail directly toward the source of Blue Bow. Eventually, they arrived at a massive warehouse filled with shipping containers. Street nervously explained that the concentration of demonic energy there was overwhelming. Lavis decided to open one of the containers immediately, but Street pointed out that every container was tightly sealed with chains and locks. Lavis solved the problem the simplest way possible. He punched straight through the chains, shattering them instantly. The moment the container doors opened, an unbearable rotten stench exploded outward. Inside were countless boxes packed tightly together, each radiating disgusting demonic energy. Street nervously asked whether all of it was Blue Bow. Looking around, they realized dozens of similar containers surrounded them. Seeing the horrifying amount instantly reminded Lavis of an old memory from the demon realm. Back then, he once fought against his uncle Varkin near a massive cliffside. During the battle, Varkin mocked Lavis for being arrogant despite still acting like a weak child. Lavis furiously cursed at him in response, but his uncle simply laughed and declared that if Lavis refused to behave properly, he might as well die. Varkin struck him with overwhelming force and launched him straight off the cliff. As Lavis fell into the endless abyss, he screamed curses at his uncle, while Varkin laughed and asked whether this pathetic death was truly how the great Lavis Vindica planned to end his life. Eventually, Lavis crashed violently at the bottom while groaning in pain. Moments later, Varkin landed nearby too, still mocking him. But suddenly, his uncle stopped speaking after noticing something nearby. Lavis followed his gaze and froze. Before them lay a massive pile of demon corpses completely devoured by flowers. The bodies were twisted and hollow while grotesque flowers bloomed directly from inside their flesh. Varkin sighed heavily and quietly remarked that they finally discovered where the creatures had been hiding all along. Looking at the horrifying scene now in the warehouse, Lavis remembered the ancient history behind the devouring flowers. Long ago, when light and darkness separated into opposing forces, creatures unable to fully belong to either side were born between them. From the remains of fallen celestials and torn demons, a mysterious flower bloomed at the dawn of creation itself, a flower whose only desire was destruction.
Get 50% off handcraft.
That's crazy. This is something more deeper than all that shit. Not gonna lie, this model is low-key good.
It devoured flesh endlessly and sought the collapse of worlds.
All
Back then,
right.
Lavis and Varkin personally burned every corpse and every flower they found at the bottom of that abyss.
W.
Lavis was certain they exterminated everything completely. Even Street explained that the overlord of the demon realm supposedly searched through the entire world afterward to wipe out every remaining trace. So why were there suddenly so many appearing again? Lavis quietly explained that devouring flowers originally came from the human world itself. Unlike heaven or the demon realm, the human world existed in the middle, where light and darkness mixed together into unstable chaos. It belonged fully to neither side, making it the perfect place for corruption to spread. According to ancient human legends, humanity supposedly exterminated the flowers thousands of years ago. But clearly, that story was false. And if the flowers were simultaneously appearing in both the demon realm and the human world again, then someone, somewhere, was intentionally bringing them back. The moment Lavis and Street opened the warehouse container, a bright flashlight suddenly shined directly onto them from behind. Both of them immediately turned around. One of the gang members narrowed his eyes and said he had been wondering who was making noise around the containers this late at night. But after taking a closer look at Lavis, his expression instantly changed. Excitedly, he shouted for Jinji, and announced that the idiot from the tattoo parlor had shown up again. Street immediately recognized the woman standing nearby, and quietly informed Lavis that she was Jinji herself. Jinji frowned in irritation and demanded to know who the hell he really was. First he trashed her tattoo shop, and now he somehow tracked them all the way here. Lavis ignored her anger completely, and instead calmly asked whether she was the one running this entire operation. Jinji proudly admitted that she was, and sarcastically asked what exactly he planned to do about it. Lavis glanced toward the containers filled with Bluebo and asked whether she even understood what that disgusting product was made from. Jinji simply smirked and asked if he was trying to steal their business secrets. Lavis sighed and admitted that he honestly did not care about human business. He only felt strangely uncomfortable leaving something like this alone. Hearing that, Jinji immediately turned toward her men and angrily asked whether they planned to screw things up again. She reminded them that they all knew exactly what young Mu would do if they failed. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out several Bluebo candies before tossing them toward the gang members like rewards. Their faces immediately lit up with excitement. They eagerly asked whether the product was really free this time. Jinji coldly ordered them to shut up and eat. As the men greedily devoured the candies, Lavis quietly told Street to stay hidden, because she would only get in his way during the fight. Within seconds, the Bluebo started affecting the gang members. Their eyes became bloodshot. Their bodies twitched unnaturally. Jinji pointed directly at Lavis and ordered them to kill him immediately. The men dropped the candy wrappers and charged toward him like rabid animals. Lavis simply called them idiots. Humans truly were arrogant creatures. They
Bro.
consumed unknown substances without hesitation and never
Exactly.
realized the danger until it was already too late. The amount of demonic energy concentrated inside the warehouse was enormous now, and Lavis could feel his own power reacting more violently than ever before. One of the attackers lunged toward him with a knife, but Lavis effortlessly dodged the strike and countered with a punch to the
Boom!
face. Another attacker immediately rushed in and kicked him from the side.
Boom!
Lavis quickly dealt with him too before charging another man, dodging his
Boom!
punch and smashing his fist upward into the guy's chin
Boom!
with enough force to send him flying backward. But this time, things were different.
Oh
The
shit.
Bluebo users were much stronger than before. One attacker suddenly grabbed Lavis from behind while another tackled him violently onto the ground.
Oh
Lavis
hell
cursed
no!
in irritation as the huge guy among them drove his knee directly into his stomach. The others instantly piled onto him while laughing madly and punching him repeatedly from every direction. Hidden nearby, Street watched nervously while Jinji enjoyed the entire spectacle with a satisfied smile. Even Lavis himself realized the enemies were physically stronger now. Apparently consuming larger quantities of Bluebo significantly enhanced them. While defending himself from the relentless attacks, an idea suddenly crossed his mind.
Oh.
Lavis quickly twisted his body toward the open container nearby. Before punching one of the stacked boxes apart, he grabbed a bag filled with blue powder and violently burst it open directly into the attackers' faces. The men instantly started choking and coughing uncontrollably. At the same time, Lavis accidentally inhaled some of the powder himself. The disgusting rotten smell nearly made him sick, but something unexpected happened. The massive concentration of evil and corrupted demonic energy surrounding the powder caused his sealed magic to react even more aggressively than before. By the time the attackers recovered enough to continue fighting, Lavis had already changed completely. He rushed at them with terrifying speed. Collapsed instantly, after receiving a brutal punch directly to the face. Lavis then dodged another attacker, grabbed his leg, and slammed him violently into the ground before stomping directly onto his knee and completely destroying the joint. The largest gang member roared and charged toward him next, but Lavis reacted instantly. He
God.
kicked the giant in the stomach, moved behind him in one motion, grabbed both shoulders and slammed the massive man onto his back hard enough to shake the ground itself.
Boom.
Jinji stared at the scene in complete shock. How was one high school student defeating all of them alone? Then Lavis slowly stood up and looked directly at her. The moment she met his piercing eyes, fear completely overtook her. For the first time in years, Jinji genuinely felt like she was staring at something inhuman. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the city,
Extra confidence from a great.
Fuck! Why these ads always ruin this shit? I understand it now. Oh, no? Okay.
a ballet competition had just begun. A talented young dancer named Yura gracefully performed on stage, while her mother Kang Hanju proudly watched from home through a television broadcast. Hanju happily declared that with talent like this, her daughter would definitely enter the famous Venus Ballet Troupe someday. Suddenly, Young Moo entered the room alongside one of his assistants. Hanju immediately exploded in anger and demanded to know how they dared enter her house without permission. Young Mew calmly placed a jar filled with Bluebo candies onto the table and explained that because she ordered such a large amount, they decided to deliver it personally. Hanju nervously stared at the jar before asking whether these were really the same candies from before. Young Mew casually assured her that there was nothing to worry about, since they personally controlled every stage of production and distribution. But Hanju still looked uneasy. Young Moo smirked and asked whether she was only becoming worried now after already feeding huge amounts of the product to her own daughter. At that exact moment, Yura continued performing on stage under the effects of Bluebo. Her movements became unnaturally fast and precise. She spun endlessly while performing impossible tricks one after another. However, as the performance continued, something clearly started going wrong. Drool slowly dripped from her mouth. Her eyes rolled backward. Her body trembled violently. Young Mew calmly commented that Hanju probably rushed things too quickly and asked how many candies she fed her daughter. Suddenly Yura froze awkwardly in the middle of a spin. Hanju panicked and screamed for her daughter to stop, as if the girl could somehow hear her through the television. Then a horrifying cracking sound echoed across the stage. Yura's leg twisted unnaturally before her entire body collapsed onto the floor motionless. The audience immediately erupted into terrified screams while security rushed onto the stage. Hanju burst into tears and hysterically blamed Young Moo for promising there would be no side effects. Young Mew calmly corrected her. There were no side effects, as long as the dosage was controlled properly. Unfortunately, her daughter no longer had any hope of recovery without continued use of Bluebo. He explained that now Yura's body would depend on the product until the very end. Hanju stared fearfully at the candy jar, while Young Moo continued explaining that addiction was already unavoidable. Before he could finish speaking, Hanju screamed loudly while clutching her head in despair. Then Young Moo's phone suddenly rang. It was Jin Ji. He casually answered the video call and asked what she wanted. But instead of Jin Ji, Lavis suddenly appeared in front of the camera and calmly asked whether Young Moo was the one producing Bluebo. Young Mew-nya's eyes widened instantly. The call ended immediately afterward. Young Mew gave Hanju one final gloomy glance before apologizing and saying urgent business had appeared. Back at the warehouse, Street nervously asked Lavis why humans willingly consumed such dangerous garbage in the first place. Lavis casually answered that humans were stupid and arrogant creatures. They always believed addiction could never happen to them personally. Since they lacked anything meaningful to truly believe in, they desperately clung to pathetic things like drugs and illusions instead. Suddenly, Street noticed movement behind him. She quickly pointed deeper into the forest. At the same time, Jinji excitedly called out for Young Moo. Young Moo himself stepped out from the darkness alongside several armed men. Calmly, he asked whether destroying the tattoo parlor was also Lavis's doing. Lavis immediately replied that he did not care about the tattoo shop at all. What interested him was where Young Moo obtained the devouring flowers. According to Lavis, a pathetic little human should never have been capable of acquiring something like that. Hearing the words little human caused Young Moo's expression to change slightly. He quietly wondered whether Lavis truly was someone similar to himself. Back when he was younger, he lived with a father completely addicted to every kind of drug imaginable. One night, Young Moo returned home desperately craving more substances and called out to his father repeatedly, demanding another dose. But his father never answered. Annoyed, Young Moo kicked the body lying on the floor. The corpse rolled over. Its lifeless eyes stared blankly upward. Young Mew cursed angrily and realized the old man died.
Hold on, this guy looks like Shigaraki, not gonna lie. Y'all see it? Y'all see the resemblance? I see the resemblance. Look at that. That dry ass lipstick, baggy ass eyes. I see it. And the messy ass hair. That's Shigaraki right there. I see it.
Died while consuming garbage his entire life. Furious, he repeatedly kicked the corpse while screaming that
Damn.
now there would be nobody left to provide him with more drugs. Then suddenly, the corpse's eyes lit up. Young Mew instantly froze in fear. Slowly, the dead body started rising back to its feet. But it was no longer his father. Something else had taken over the corpse entirely. The being calmly asked whether his father's death saddened him. Young Moom stared silently for a moment before admitting that he honestly did not care at all. In fact, he felt relieved that the useless old man finally died. The only thing young Mu truly cared about was obtaining more of that substance. Hearing this answer seemed to satisfy the creature. The demon handed him a strange flower and instructed him to feed his father's corpse to it. According to the demon, doing so would form a contract between them and grant young Mu everything he desired. However, if anyone ever betrayed the devouring flower or rejected its influence, then young Mu must kill them personally. The contract itself would protect him. Young Mew silently stared at the flower for several moments. Then a twisted smile slowly spread across his face.
Deadass, that's Shigaraki
Without
right there.
hesitation, he stabbed the flower directly into his father's corpse. Young
Um,
Mu stared directly at
bro.
Lavis, before quietly asking whether he really thought he was just a pathetic little human. Lavis immediately realized from his tone that this man possessed some kind of hidden trump card. Young Mu calmly confirmed it himself, and declared that the creature he served granted him an entirely new life. The moment he said that, Lavis immediately understood everything. This idiot had formed a contract with a demon. Lavis flexed his wrist while sighing in irritation, and admitted that he honestly did not care what kind of nonsense belief young Mu followed. Still, he almost felt sorry that both he and that demon ended up becoming this pathetic together. Hearing those words instantly enraged young Mu. Veins bulged across his face as he screamed, demanding to know how Lavis dared insult him like that. He immediately ordered all his remaining men to capture the brat alive. Meanwhile, Street quietly ran farther away because she knew interfering would only hinder her master during battle. At this point, Lavis was genuinely getting annoyed. These constant fights with drugged-up humans were becoming exhausting, so he decided to finish everything quickly.
Eve to me is basically freedom. It's a giant open universe where...
Meanwhile, across the city, ambulances rushed Yura toward the hospital while her terrified mother cried helplessly beside her. At the same time, students all over the country continued meeting with couriers to receive Blue Bow shipments. Ever since the app launched, orders exploded beyond control. Blue Bow spread through schools like wildfire. Songjun excitedly declared that soon they would have VIP clients across the entire country. One of the gang members even asked whether this meant they were about to become a global corporation. Apparently, Young Mu already established routes into China and Japan too. Everyone praised him like some kind of genius businessman. Meanwhile, trapped inside the basement computer room, Xian silently monitored the app's expansion while drowning in guilt. Every passing second caused more people to fall victim to Blue Bow, and desperately prayed for someone to finally stop it all. Back at the warehouse, Lavis had already finished dealing with most of Young Moom's men. Jinji stared at him in disbelief, and admitted this monster was definitely not a normal high school student. Maybe he belonged to some rival organization instead. Lavis looked genuinely confused by her words, because human gang rivalries meant absolutely nothing to him. At that moment, Young Mu suddenly attacked. Lavis reacted instantly and blocked his hand mid-strike. But unlike the other addicts, Young Mu moved on an entirely different level. Every attack came fast and precise. Lavis defended himself while noticing the overwhelming demonic energy surrounding his opponent. Young Mu furiously demanded to know how Lavis could possibly block his attacks. Had he received the blessing too? Because according to Young Mu, Lord Baver should belong to him alone. Hearing that name caused Lavis's eyes to narrow. Now he understood completely. The devouring flowers, the disgusting stench, the demonic corruption. The god Young Mu worshipped was none other than Bavor Hilt himself. Young Mu looked shocked that Lavis recognized the name, but Lavis only laughed mockingly and declared that out of every possible demon in existence, nobody in their right mind would ever worship an insignificant coward like Bavor Hilt. Those words instantly drove Young Mu insane with rage. He screamed at Lavis to stop insulting the one who saved him. Lavis smirked coldly and asked how pathetic Baver must look now, hiding like a rat after abandoning the Hilt clan during the extermination. Young Mu furiously ordered him to shut up because he was unworthy of even speaking Lord Baver's name. His attacks immediately became more violent and chaotic. While blocking the strikes, Lavis remembered the day he annihilated the Hilt bloodline. Out of everyone there, only Bavor escaped alive by fleeing like a coward. And now that same coward somehow gathered worshippers inside the human world. Lavis quietly wondered where exactly that rat was hiding now. Young Mu completely lost control. He suddenly leaned forward and growled violently, An unbearable rotten stench exploded outward. Lavis instantly covered his nose in disgust. Then Young Mu tackled him directly to the
Oh
ground while
shit!
screaming that anyone insulting Lord Baver would die personally at his hands. He grabbed Lavis by the head, slammed his
Whoa!
knee into his stomach repeatedly, then pinned him flat against the ground before raining down punch after punch. Lavis gritted his teeth while desperately
Oh hell
blocking the
no!
attacks.
Oh
Young Mu
hell no!
roared that both Blue Bao and Lord Bavor belonged entirely to him alone. At this point, Lavis realized the demonic energy completely destroyed this idiot's sanity. Young Mu
Bro.
truly intended to kill him. Watching from hiding, Street became increasingly worried because Miho's human body had already reached its physical limit. If this were the demon realm and Lavis possessed his true power, he would have destroyed Young Mu instantly, but
Bro.
inside a fragile human body, even moving became dangerous. Far away in the demon realm, Varkan and Banbei continued observing the battle through magic. Banbei commented that the devouring flower test subject seemed to have fully merged with Young Mu. Even with the demon bloodstone implanted inside him, Lavis remained trapped inside a human body. At this rate he might genuinely die there, and if Lavis died before his exile ended, his soul would face complete destruction forever. But Varkan only smiled calmly. Then he asked Banbei whether he knew what Lavis hated most in the entire world. Banbei answered that choosing only one thing was difficult, because Lavis hated almost everything. His personality was unbelievably terrible. Varkan sighed and quietly admitted that the boy resembled him more than anyone realized. Then he finally explained the answer. Lavis hated filth more than anything else. He suffered from extreme mysophobia and could not tolerate dirt, rot, or disgusting smells. At that exact moment, Lavis suddenly stopped Young Mu's fist mid-air. His entire body trembled with fury. He quietly muttered that everything there was filthy. Young Mu looked confused by his reaction, but Lavis suddenly exploded with rage and screamed that he absolutely hated this disgusting smell coming from him. Something instantly changed. Lavis clenched his fist so tightly that his arm trembled violently. Young Mu instinctively stepped backward in fear. Slowly, Lavis stood back up while staring at his own left hand. Even though only a tiny fraction awakened, the strength flowing through that arm finally felt like it truly belonged to Lavis Vindica again. Young Mu became too terrified to approach him anymore. Meanwhile, Lavis calmly declared that he no longer wished to touch such a filthy body any longer, so he would end everything quickly. The next second, Lavis vanished from sight. He appeared directly in front of Young Mu and punched him in the face so hard that his head snapped backward violently. Young Mu staggered in shock while wondering where this insane strength suddenly came from. Street watched excitedly as her master completely overwhelmed the enemy now. Lavis coldly told him again that he was not human. Then he punched Young Mu a second time with enough force to launch him several meters backward. Junji screamed in terror while Young Mu desperately stood again and demanded to know who Lavis truly was. Lavis instantly appeared before him once more. He ordered Young Mu to stop speaking with that filthy mouth before smashing another punch directly into him and launching him high into the air. Even Bam became shocked while watching the battle. Varkan calmly explained that when the devouring flower subject released that overwhelming stench, it likely overstimulated Lavis's mysophobia. Because of that, part of his sealed demonic instincts awakened. Although only fragments of his true power returned, it was enough for him to temporarily surpass the limitations of Miho's human body. Bambi still could not believe it. Even with the demon bloodstone, using authentic demonic power inside a sinner's human body should have been impossible.
This professional 30
It's him.
But Varkan only smiled proudly and reminded him that Lavis Vindica was never ordinary. No matter what happened, that monster was still his nephew. Back at the warehouse, Lavis smashed Young Mu through several stacks of Blue Bow boxes, before calmly telling him to consider himself lucky. The truth was simple. In this body, Lavis could not kill him. Young Mu stared in disbelief. According to him, someone personally blessed by Lord Baver should never lose like this. Then suddenly, he noticed the nearby Blue Bow powder and realized something. A twisted smile spread across his face as he reached toward another box. But before he could touch it, Lavis instantly grabbed his wrist and warned him not to do something so stupid. According to Lavis, he would beat him half to death long before allowing that. Then Lavis adjusted his stance. He grabbed his own left wrist tightly with his right hand to stabilize the overwhelming force building inside it, and charged. Lavis could only stand frozen in horror. The next moment, Lavis unleashed a devastating punch directly into his face, while amplifying the impact using his other arm. The explosion of force sent Young Mu flying backward headfirst into a container full of Blue Bow boxes. Then everything became silent. Young Mu's body no longer moved. Lavis slowly pulled out a handkerchief and covered his nose while muttering that the disgusting stench finally faded a little. Meanwhile, deep inside the basement control room, she stared at the app statistics with trembling hands. Every second the numbers kept rising faster and faster. Watching it all happen made him feel sick. This was never what he wanted. To Cheyenne, school was always a place where everything felt fake from the very beginning. Relationships formed inside a confined space where survival mattered more than honesty. Students pretended to like people they secretly hated. Others bullied weaker classmates simply to avoid becoming targets themselves. Everyone wore masks to survive. That was exactly why he created the app. He only wanted people who genuinely needed each other to connect honestly. He wanted lonely people to find real friendships. He never created it to help distribute poison. Finally, Cheyenne made up his mind. His expression hardened with determination as he forcefully crashed the servers himself. Instantly, alarms began appearing across every connected device. Outside the room, Songjun and the others stared in confusion after suddenly seeing massive server errors appear on their screens. Realizing what was happening, Sean quickly stood up, grabbed a chair, and jammed it beneath the door handle so nobody could enter. The gang members immediately started banging violently against both the door and the windows while screaming at him to open up. Ignoring them completely, Xion rushed back toward the computer and started deleting the app
That's
itself.
right, Shane.
Outside,
That's
Songjun
right.
panicked and ordered everyone to break into the room immediately. Seconds later, a loud crash echoed through the basement as Songjun smashed the window using a chair before climbing inside together with several others. The moment they entered, one of the men punched Shojian directly in the face while screaming in rage and demanding to know what he was doing. As Shojian struggled on the floor, the others rushed toward the computer and realized he truly crashed the servers. Panic immediately spread across their faces. Songjun screamed at them to stop the deletion process immediately. If Youngmu discovered this happened, he would kill every single one of them. Unfortunately, none of the idiots understood how to stop the program. Meanwhile, Xian desperately endured the beating while thinking about only one thing. He had to hold out until the app was completely deleted. No matter what, suddenly Xian grabbed a sharp shard of broken glass from the floor
Oh
and
no, he
slashed one of the
didn't.
men across the leg. While the others stumbled backward in shock, he quickly got up and ran toward the other side of the room. There he grabbed a fire extinguisher and turned toward them while shouting that this was his app. Then he unleashed the extinguisher directly into the room. White dust instantly exploded everywhere, filling the air and completely blocking everyone's vision, while Shisan used the confusion to buy himself more time. And finally, the app deletion completed successfully. For a brief second, Xian looked toward the monitor in relief. That moment of distraction cost him immediately. Songjun suddenly tackled him from behind, grabbed him by the throat, and slammed him violently onto the floor. Furious beyond reason, he screamed at the others to find something and tie this idiot up immediately. But because of the fire extinguisher dust, nobody could properly see anything. Meanwhile, Songjun tightened both hands around Xian's throat. Shaichan desperately clawed at his arm while his vision slowly darkened. Was this really all he could do? Was this where everything ended? Then suddenly, a cold voice echoed through the room behind them. How dare he touch my servant? Songjun froze instantly. The next moment, a horrifying scream filled the basement. The other gang members nervously turned toward the sound. As the dust slowly settled, they saw Lavis grabbing Seongjun by the hair while smashing his face repeatedly into the ground. Panicking, the others rushed toward their friend, but Lavis immediately charged at them instead. One punch dropped the first attacker instantly. Another strike knocked the second one flat onto the floor. Lavis coldly demanded to know who exactly they thought they were touching. According to him, he would rather die than allow someone else to take what belonged to him. Achan stared up at him in shock. Suddenly, old memories resurfaced in his mind. Back when he first showed the app to Miho, he nervously explained how it worked. Through location sharing and interest boards, people nearby could gather, communicate, and even form study groups together. Miho looked genuinely impressed and asked whether Xion really created something that amazing himself. Then Miho pointed toward a strange red button inside the app and asked what it did. Back then, Xion awkwardly looked away before admitting the truth. The last time Taewoo's gang dragged Miho away, Xion desperately wanted to help but could not figure out where they took him. He felt powerless and guilty afterward. That was why he created the emergency SOS function. If someone pressed that button, only trusted friends would receive the location signal immediately. That way, even if something terrible happened again, Xion promised he would definitely come save him somehow, whether through the police or by gathering friends.
This quiz reveals your dream career in 11 questions.
No, I'm good. I already have my goals.
He swore Miho would never stay alone again. Back then, Miho smiled softly and thanked him before promising to download the app for sure. Now tears filled Xian's eyes as he weakly held up his phone toward Lavis and asked whether he truly came because of the SOS signal. Achan immediately realized that Lavis really did receive it. Unable to stop himself anymore, Xian burst into tears while thanking him repeatedly for coming to save him. Outside the basement, meanwhile, Street struggled to hold Jinji in place while waiting for Lavis to finish inside. Or at least she tried to hold her. Jinji constantly struggled and yelled at her to let go already. But the moment Lavis finally emerged from the basement, Street became distracted for a second. That tiny opening was enough. Jinji instantly broke free and tried escaping. Street immediately prepared to chase after her, but Lavis calmly ordered her to let the woman go because she no longer mattered to him anymore. He quietly looked up toward the night sky, while thinking that at least all the devouring flowers hidden there had finally been destroyed. In the distance, the warehouse burned violently while police officers and firefighters rushed to the scene. Emergency vehicles surrounded the entire area while officers tried figuring out what exactly happened there. One detective named Park Young-in carefully looked around the burning site, before noticing unconscious gang members scattered everywhere near the trees. Meanwhile, Lavis calmly headed home together with Cheyenne and Street. Chae-chan occasionally glanced toward Street in confusion, because this strange girl walking beside them felt suspicious no matter how he looked at it. At the same time, Lavis finally realized something important. His uncle Varkan and Bambi had manipulated him from the very beginning. The moment he eventually returned to the demon realm, he would definitely get revenge for this humiliation. Chae-chan nervously asked whether Lavis truly did not need to visit a hospital after everything that happened. Lavis simply answered that hospitals sounded troublesome and lazy. Hearing that somehow made Chae-chan laugh weakly despite everything. Then Shine quietly admitted something. He only pressed the SOS button just in case. He never actually expected Lavis to come. Lavis immediately looked confused and asked what exactly he meant by that. Before Cheyenne could answer, Street suddenly burst into laughter while covering her mouth. She teased Lavis by reminding him what he said earlier when interrogating Jinji. This road leads to their hideout, right? Otherwise she'll end up like the others. Street pointed out that none of that sounded accidental at all. Meanwhile, Jinji herself remembered those exact words too. She originally assumed Lavis went that far because Xian was his close friend, but when Lavis previously acted confused after hearing Xian was kidnapped, she realized something strange. If not friendship, then why did he go so far to save him? Lavis glanced toward Cheyenne's phone again and noticed the blinking SOS signal on the screen. Quietly, Street whispered that Lavis could stop pretending already. Whether he admitted it or not, Cheyenne now viewed him as a hero who came to rescue him personally. Then Cheyenne finally noticed something else. He pointed towards Street and awkwardly asked who exactly she was supposed to be. Lavis casually answered that she was simply his subordinate named Street. Hearing the word subordinate instantly made Cheyenne panic internally. Suddenly, everything made terrible sense in his head. Miho suddenly becoming overwhelmingly strong, a suspicious girl following him everywhere, brutal fights with gangsters, mysterious behavior.
Chae-chan's eyes widened in horror as he convinced himself that Miho definitely joined some kind of dangerous gang.
Meanwhile, Lavis calmly thought that eventually countless enemies would target his servant anyway. There was no point hiding the truth forever, so he finally decided to reveal it. With complete confidence, Lavis proudly declared that he was none other than Lavis Vindica, the son of the great demon king, who descended from the demon realm itself. Achan stared at him blankly, then asked again in complete confusion, "Who?" Lavis frowned slightly, before explaining that now that Shine knew the truth, he would naturally have to assist him with future matters too. Chandra continued staring silently for several seconds, then suddenly screamed in panic because something soft landed on his lap. Street had transformed back into her cat form, and was now rubbing affectionately against him. Completely exhausted, Lavis casually told Street to explain everything herself because he was too tired after fighting all day. Street happily agreed and told Xian to listen carefully. Shi-chan stared at the talking cat in absolute terror, then his eyes rolled backward, and he lost consciousness on the spot. After a long silence, that the police had already taken everyone away, and were heading toward the station first. Hearing this, Young Moo lowered his head while grinding his teeth in frustration. Nearby, Detective Cha suddenly turned around after noticing movement and demanded to know who was there. Unauthorized personnel were not allowed near the scene, but before he could react further, a tall man wearing a dark robe calmly ordered him to stay quiet.
That's
With
him!
one effortless push, the detective crashed onto the ground, while the mysterious figure walked past him without even slowing down. The man slowly approached Young Moo's car. Then he looked down at the broken and trembling Young Moo, before quietly remarking how pathetic he looked now. The moment Young Moo saw him, his entire expression twisted with desperation. "Mr. Bavor." His voice trembled as he tried speaking, but Bavor calmly interrupted him and ordered him to follow because they needed to talk privately. Meanwhile, Detective Park Young-in continued investigating the warehouse disaster. Looking around the burning scene, she remembered receiving reports that every Blue Bow dealer connected to the operation had suddenly been neutralized at once. She could not understand who possibly did all this. Worse still, the mind-altering candy officially approved by the Ministry of Health had already spread among countless students nationwide. She quietly muttered that everyone involved in this situation was completely insane. Then she noticed Detective Cha struggling to stand back up nearby while holding his head in pain. Jungan immediately rushed toward him and asked whether he was all right. Through the pain, Detective Cha weakly told her to check the car immediately. Confused, Jungan looked inside the vehicle. Then her eyes widened. The mysterious robed man was gone completely. There was no trace left behind. Elsewhere, Young Moo now knelt before Baver Hilt himself, while desperately begging for another chance. He insisted that if he simply consumed more Bluebo, then next time he could definitely kill Lavis.
Can't kill the main character. Can't kill the main character.
Baver quietly asked whether Young Moo even understood how valuable those burned devouring flowers truly were. According to him, he suffered immensely while gathering those flowers and cultivating loyal followers for years. That was exactly why pathetic humans should never have been trusted in the first place. Young Mew continued begging desperately, promising he would destroy Lavis no matter what. But instead of answering, Baver suddenly crushed one of the devouring flowers directly against Young Mew's face. A horrifying scream echoed immediately afterward. Young Moo collapsed onto the ground while clutching one eye in agony. Baver coldly reminded him about the blood oath he swore earlier. If Young Moo truly wished to prove his loyalty one final time, then he should do so using the flower itself. Meanwhile, Jinji desperately searched through another hideout while panicking internally. She kept repeating to herself that she just needed the crypto wallet. If she grabbed the money and escaped now, maybe she could still survive this nightmare. Suddenly, a man stumbled into the room. He looked completely deranged. The moment Jinji saw the writing carved into his forehead, her face turned pale. The man screamed incoherently about candy and demanded more Bluebo immediately. His eyes moved in different directions while black veins spread across his face. Jinji instantly realized the horrifying truth. This psycho consumed way too much Bluebo. Terrified, she grabbed a nearby stick and demanded to know where he even came from. But before she could react properly, the addict punched her directly in the stomach and sent her crashing onto the floor. Clutching her stomach in agony, Jinji watched in horror as the man arched his body unnaturally while screaming for more Bluebo. Then suddenly, black mana burst from his face. A different voice echoed from inside him. The strange voice casually remarked that Lavis definitely would not like seeing this situation. Trembling in fear, Jinji begged the being to save her. But the voice simply sighed weakly and admitted that unfortunately he lacked the strength to help her personally. If she truly was destined for hell, then she should simply accept it already. Jinji stared in terror, casually answered that although she might die there, at least her body would remain behind in the human world afterward. Meanwhile, deep inside the demon realm, another conversation unfolded. A woman named Anus glared furiously at Varkan after hearing about everything happening around Lavis. She demanded to know whether he completely lost his mind. After sending Lavis into the human world, did he seriously implant a demon bloodstone inside him too? Varkan calmly smiled. According to him, Lavis was already an adult now. Did she really think he would send the son of the great demon king away empty-handed? He simply hid the bloodstone carefully inside Lavis's human body. Achonis exploded in rage immediately. Did he honestly want to announce to the entire universe that the son of the demon king was alone and vulnerable inside the human world? Carefully asked whether perhaps it was finally time for her to trust Lavis more. But Achon angrily explained that the problem was not trust. She feared the instability of the current world itself. Right now, even the smallest crack between worlds could collapse everything completely. Varkan folded his arms confidently and declared that Lavis was much stronger than she believed. Before he could continue speaking proudly, Achon punched him directly in the head and screamed that strength was not the problem. Lakis was an idiot. That was the real danger. If even the slightest damage happened to Lavis's soul, then both of them would die together because of the Bloodstone's connection. Varkan yelled in pain and demanded why she still hit him despite them being adults already. Then he loudly ordered Bonbei to search through every magic book available, because he absolutely needed to discover a method for eliminating all annoying older sisters from existence forever. Achonis immediately grabbed him by the neck in fury while Banbei quietly wondered how Lavis somehow survived growing up surrounded by lunatics like these. Meanwhile, back in the human world, Xion finally sat quietly with Lavis and Street after regaining consciousness earlier. Still overwhelmed, he nervously admitted that Lavis truly was a demon after all. Lavis casually answered that humans indeed called his kind demons. Street happily nodded in agreement beside him. Then Shihan nervously asked something else. Now that he learned all these terrifying secrets, would he go to hell after dying? Lavis calmly answered that hell already existed right there in the human world itself. Besides, if Shion simply followed him into the demon realm later, nobody would dare touch him there. After all, he served none other than Lavis Vindica, sole heir to the great demon king. Shion instantly panicked and loudly refused. He absolutely did not want to visit some horrifying place like the demon realm. Lavis frowned slightly before muttering that once he returned home, the very first thing he planned to do was rip Banbei's eyes out and suck every liquid from them personally. Trying to change the subject, Xian suddenly asked what happened to the real Miho. Street quietly explained that Miho was destined to die regardless. According to the laws of exile, demons could only occupy bodies already fated for death anyway. Xian's expression immediately darkened. Holding back tears, he quietly asked why Miho deserved such a fate. Lavis looked genuinely confused by the sadness in Xian's voice. According to him, Miho would still live for several more decades inside the demon realm afterward anyway. Eventually everyone met there in the end. Peichan immediately realized the terrifying implication. So humans almost automatically ended up in the demon realm after death? Lavis casually replied that humans possessed way too much imagination regarding the place. According to him, the demon realm was actually extremely fun. Street enthusiastically agreed and happily described endless screams, torn human flesh.
Score epic Father's Day deals at Dick's. Get up to 40%.
That's fun.
Suffering filling their homeland. Achan quickly begged her to stop talking. Lavis casually assured him that death was still far away anyway, so there was no reason to worry yet. He simply ordered Xian to continue behaving normally around him, and avoid speaking too much about demon-related matters. Xian nervously agreed. Then suddenly Lavis groaned and grabbed his head because his entire body started aching again after overusing the demon bloodstone's power. Eventually, he finally returned home. The moment he stepped inside, Mina suddenly rushed toward him excitedly, while holding a cake with candles on top. Happy birthday. Lavis froze in confusion. Birthday? Mina happily explained that she and their mother spent all day preparing everything since yesterday. Although she admitted the cake's taste might not be perfect, she still proudly placed a party hat onto his head. Then she happily announced that their parents would arrive soon too. Before Lavis could react properly, Mina pulled out her phone and declared they absolutely needed a celebratory selfie first. That was when Lavis finally noticed the bandage covering her face. He asked what happened to her. Mina casually smiled and explained that some hooligans were harassing an elderly woman with a cart earlier, so she stepped in to help. According to her, it really was no big deal. Lavis silently stared at her. This weak human girl knowingly risked getting hurt just to help someone else. To him, that behavior felt completely incomprehensible. Still smiling brightly, Mina handed him a spoonful of cake and told him he must be hungry. The moment the cake entered his mouth, Lavis's eyes widened in complete shock. The taste overwhelmed him instantly. He grabbed his own face while silently savoring the unfamiliar
I guess you could say that shit is sweet.
sensation with genuine happiness. Then suddenly, an enraged scream echoed from outside.
Whoa.
Zhang Taisik stormed into the house in fury while screaming that he wanted the addresses of every idiot who threw eggs at him during the election campaign. According to him, he planned to kill every single one of them. His terrified assistant immediately agreed, but Taisik angrily punched him anyway while screaming that useless trash like him should die first. Seo Juhi desperately grabbed Tasik's arm and begged him to calm down. Tasik instantly struck her across the face and ordered her not to touch him. Mina
Whoa, you hit the mom? That's... Look at you. Oh, bro, Miho was just like, I don't know what the fuck going on, but I'm just enjoying this.
immediately shouted at him to stop because their mother did nothing wrong. Tasik finally noticed the birthday cake sitting on the table. His face darkened instantly. After being humiliated publicly during his campaign, his family was seriously sitting around eating cake instead of worrying about him. Furious, he shoved Mina aside and screamed that they completely lost all fear and respect toward him.
You got me effed up if you're gonna ruin the cake.
Then he violently knocked the birthday cake onto the floor. Seo Jukri burst into tears while begging him to stop because it was Miho's birthday today. But Tasik only shouted even louder that birthdays meant nothing in their current situation. Lavis silently watched everything unfold. Then he slowly looked down at the ruined cake scattered across the floor. That cake belonged to him, and this arrogant human dared destroy it. Nearby, Seo Juhi cried helplessly while apologizing to her children. Mina hugged her tightly while insisting none of this was her fault.
You got me
Meanwhile,
effed up.
Lavis quietly stared toward Zhang Tasik's back, and for the first time since arriving in the human world, he genuinely thought someone there was even more arrogant than himself. Later that night, Zhang Tasik sat inside his office screaming furiously about young Mu. According to him, that idiot stopped sending money and completely disappeared without contact. Tasik slammed his fist against the desk while yelling that even arranging a single photo with Deputy Park required advance payments nowadays. He cursed young Mu repeatedly and called him a completely useless bastard. One of his assistants nervously promised they were doing everything possible to locate young Mu, but Taisik only became angrier. He complained that he already hated lowering himself to cooperate with trash like young Mu just for election ratings. Yet somehow those idiots still managed to fail him. Suddenly another assistant burst into the office in panic. "Sir, Mina's video is exploding online right now. Tasik immediately looked confused and demanded to know what video they were talking about. The assistant quickly handed him a tablet. On the screen, Mina stood protectively in front of an elderly woman while confronting several rude young men. One of the boys grabbed Mina's cheek aggressively while shouting at her to mind her own business, but Mina instantly slapped his hand away and yelled back at them, "How dare you mock an old grandmother, and act proud about it." The young men called her crazy and screamed that everyone should get out of there already. But instead of backing away, Mina calmly approached the frightened old woman and gently asked whether she was all right. Watching the video, Tasik blinked in surprise. His
What a
assistant
hero.
quickly explained that if the public discovered Mina was his daughter, his support ratings would rise dramatically. According to him, the reaction online was
Dude, you're gonna use your own daughter for fame? That's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy.
overwhelmingly positive. People were calling Mina brave, kind, and heroic. A slow grin spread across Tasik's face. So the
Hell no.
situation was actually turning out rather well for him. Meanwhile, inside a luxurious room, several mysterious women quietly watched Mina's video too. One woman slowly smiled while saying that such a beautiful face had been hidden away surprisingly well. Another woman named Han Su asked for Mina to be brought to them eventually, because she looked extremely interesting. Then someone else calmly declared that Mina would become their mother's next vessel. Han Su quietly observed
Whoa,
Mina's
whoa,
face.
whoa. Vessel? Vessel? What you mean by that? Oh, hell no. Hold on. Oh, hold up now. What you mean by vessel? Nah, I don't
On the
like that.
screen, while another woman named Yanju explained that human bodies age too quickly. Eventually they became ugly, wrinkled, and weak, but Mina possessed exactly the kind of beautiful vessel they had been searching for all along. According to Yanju, it was destiny. Han Su continued staring silently at Mina's image before quietly wondering what kind of sound such a beautiful doll would make if someone broke it.
Every time you
Whoa.
Soon afterward, every news channel in the country began reporting about the courageous high school girl who saved an elderly woman from hooligans. Once reporters discovered Mina was the daughter of mayoral candidate Jong Tasik, public interest exploded even further. Tasik's assistants excitedly informed him that according to the newest surveys, he had already reclaimed first place in the election rankings overnight. At this rate, victory was practically guaranteed. Even better, tonight's major news broadcasts planned to air Mina's video nationwide at 9 o'clock. Tasik laughed in satisfaction. Who would have imagined that his daughter's reckless behavior would bring him such incredible luck? Immediately, he began planning ways to exploit the situation further. He ordered his staff to organize charity events, volunteer programs, and every possible public activity under Mina's name to maximize attention and improve his image. Then one assistant suddenly mentioned something else. The director of the giant Knox Corporation, Han Yanju herself, personally contacted them after seeing Mina's video. Tasik froze briefly. Knox, one of the most powerful companies in the country? At that moment, even Tasik started thinking Mina might truly be a treasure after all. Meanwhile, Shasan quietly admitted to Lavis that he honestly never knew Minhee's
daughter as a treasure? That's fucked up. I don't think Miho would give a fuck, and not gonna lie. Miho would not give a fuck. He'd be like, it's not my problem.
stepfather was a mayoral candidate until recently. Lavis asked whether Shasan understood Minhee's family situation well. Shasan explained that Minhee rarely spoke openly about home life, but he always seemed especially close to Minna. According to Shishorn, Minho treasured his sister deeply. Lavis slowly raised his head after hearing those words. Treasured. The word reminded him of advice Varkin once gave him long ago. According to his uncle, powerful beings must carefully protect the things necessary for maintaining their own strength. Lavis quietly remembered how noisy and irritating Varkin always was. Then suddenly, Lavis noticed movement nearby. Street was once again awkwardly squeezing herself halfway through a crack in the wall. Lavis immediately asked why she was stuck again. Embarrassed, Street admitted she might have eaten slightly too much lately. Lavis sighed and wondered whether every entrance connecting the human world and demon realm was this ridiculously narrow. Then he asked whether Banbei said anything important. Street quickly handed him a small note while explaining that Banbei himself was not there anymore. Lavis unfolded the message and immediately frowned. The note cheerfully congratulated him for his good work so far and suggested that perhaps he might catch Bravor Hilt too if he kept going. The moment Lavis finished reading, he instantly tore the paper into tiny pieces and screamed furiously that Banbei was clearly trying to use him again. According to Lavis, he planned to kill Banbei long before dealing with Bavor. Street nervously begged him to calm down, while Cheyenne quietly checked the newest election updates on his phone. The screen now showed Jong Tasik leading the mayoral race completely. Hachon quietly admitted that public opinion had shifted entirely in Tasik's favor now. At this rate he really might become mayor. Lavis looked toward the city skyline thoughtfully. Would someone like Jong Tasik truly swallow an entire city with his greed? Hachon awkwardly explained that Tasik probably would not literally swallow the city, but he definitely intended to completely control it. Hearing that caused Lavis to think of a certain species of demon. He quietly remarked that Tasik's greed strongly resembled a Cinerus demon. Confused, Xian asked what exactly that meant. Street immediately explained enthusiastically that Cineruses were gluttonous demons from the demon realm, who constantly devoured everything around them endlessly. Even other demons hated them because their hunger never stopped. Then Street awkwardly pointed out that one of those demons currently ruled this entire district in the demon realm. Still, according to her, Jong Tasik was definitely just a human. Lavis narrowed his eyes suspiciously. Anyway, if a human like that truly became ruler of the city, then perhaps the human world itself had already become rotten too. Then Lavis glanced toward Street and bluntly warned her to stop overeating as well before she turned into a Cinerus herself. Street immediately teared up and sadly promised she would eat less from now on. Meanwhile, Shihan quietly admitted something else. He
What's
really
up?
did not like how Tasik seemed ready to exploit Mina for political gain now. Hearing that, Lavis silently thought about Zhang Minho and Zhang Mina together. After some time, Lavis returned home and immediately heard voices coming from the living room. Seo Juhi nervously asked what would happen to Mina now. Sitting across from her, Han Yanju calmly answered that Mina possessed outstanding beauty and natural talent. According to her, after mastering the basics of dance, Mina could debut very quickly and might even become the center of an idol group. Seko Yuhi hesitated before quietly saying that Mina was still just a high school student. Besides, Mina never once said she wanted to become a celebrity. Jong Tasik immediately interrupted her with an irritated smile. He told his wife not to say such embarrassing things in front of the agency director. According to him, hiding Mina's natural talent would be a complete waste. Then he apologized to Han Yanju and awkwardly explained that his wife was simply too timid. At that moment, Lavis stepped into the room. Seo Juhi immediately looked toward him, while Han Yanju warmly smiled and assured her not to worry. According to her, Nox Agency would fully support Mina's education alongside her idol activities. Modern idols were different from the old generation now. They could become celebrities while still entering top universities successfully. Lavis quietly observed everyone in the room. Then his eyes shifted toward Han Su, who had been silently staring at Mina the entire time with an unnerving gaze. Lavis immediately wondered what kind of person he really was.
Back to another Saturday where fans don't
That's
just wear their
toxic,
colors,
yeah.
they commit.
Here it is. Game
Meanwhile, Tasik excitedly opened a folder and asked whether all they needed now was Mina's signature on the contract. Han Yanju smiled calmly and explained that the document before them would illuminate Mina's future. It was an official contract with Nox Agency. The moment those words were spoken, Mina noticeably stiffened. She kept her head lowered silently. Han Yanju then noticed Lavis standing nearby and politely asked whether he was Mina's older brother. She introduced herself formally as the representative director of Nox Agency. Han Yanju. Lavis simply stared at her silently without answering. Tasik immediately shouted at him in annoyance and demanded that Zhang Minho greet people properly. But Han Yanju simply laughed softly and said kids these days were all like that anyway. Lavis remained silent. Inside his mind he remembered Xian saying earlier that Minho treasured Mina deeply. Then suddenly, another memory surfaced. Long ago in the demon realm.
Yeah, this uncle's tough as fuck. I love him. It's like with fuck. It's like with I'm a LARP. I'm a LARP this shit so bad, but it's like with fuck, what was his name? Ah, I forgot his name. I'm a LARP so bad. It reminds me of that firebender from Avatar with his uncle. Fuck, I forgot his name. He had the scar. But yeah, I forgot. But it's like that. But their shit is different though.
Varkin once told him something important. According to his uncle, the world was filled with enemies constantly seeking the ruler's power. As the heir to the great demon king Gamadare Vindica, Lavis carried enormous responsibility. That was exactly why he needed to learn how to gather people around him. At the time, Lavis complained that he could handle everything perfectly fine alone. Varkin only laughed loudly and declared that one day Lavis would eventually meet people his heart reached toward naturally. When that happened, he would slowly change without even realizing it himself. Back then, Lavis dismissed the entire conversation and suggested training instead because he hated emotional discussions like that. Varkin only laughed harder and proudly declared that Lavis truly resembled him. Returning to the present, Lavis suddenly placed a hand onto Mina's shoulder. The room immediately became quiet. Looking directly at her, he asked whether she truly wanted this herself. Mina slowly raised her head in surprise. Brother. Lavis calmly told her that if she was forcing herself for someone else's sake, then she should simply say so. If there was a problem, he would deal with it personally. Hearing those words
Oh.
caused Mina's eyes to tremble slightly. Then memories from her childhood resurfaced inside her mind. She remembered Jong Tassik violently grabbing Seo Juhi by the hair while screaming that she would never take the children away from him. According to him, the children belonged to his family register now. Even if Seo Juhi left, she would never survive financially without him. Seo-chan begged him to let them go peacefully. Tassik only mocked her harder. Then Mina remembered herself stepping forward courageously and shouting that they still possessed the inheritance left behind by their grandfather. Tassik immediately snapped at her, claiming she spoke nonsense exactly like her mother. Then he squeezed Seo Juhi's face painfully, while teaching Mina what he considered the most important rule for surviving in life. Never let go of what belonged to you. Returning to the present again, Mina finally answered. Yes, she truly wanted to do this. However, she had one condition. If she earned money through this contract, then every bit of it must belong directly to her personally. Inside her heart, Mina silently made a promise. One day she would free her mother and brother from this devil called Jong Tassik, no matter what happened. Tassik looked briefly surprised before immediately laughing and pretending her condition was obvious anyway. Han Yanju smiled calmly and suggested they finalize the contract right away then. Tassik enthusiastically thanked the director and declared that Mina meant more to him than his own life. Seo Juhi nervously asked Mina one last time whether she truly felt certain about all this. Mina smiled gently at her mother. She asked her simply to trust her. Then she quietly thanked Lavis for worrying about her. Lavis looked at her silently without replying. Later that night, Han Yenju and Han Su sat together inside a luxurious car while discussing Mina. Han Yenju slowly smiled while saying the more she observed Mina, the more perfect she appeared. Her beauty, innocence, gaze, and overall appearance were exactly what she had been searching for. Hansu remained quiet briefly, before mentioning something else instead. There was something unusual about Mina's brother. Han Yanju asked what he meant. Hansu answered that Minhyo possessed a strange aura that did not feel human at all. Hearing that caused Han Yanju to chuckle softly. She jokingly asked whether Hansu believed Minhyo might actually be some follower from the demon realm. Hansu seriously suggested killing him immediately if he really was dangerous. But Han Yanju calmly rejected the idea. According to her, reckless actions right now could create huge complications. The important thing currently was Mini. They simply needed to continue observing quietly for now. Suddenly, Hansu grabbed his head violently while screaming that just looking at Minhu made him want to tear him apart. Han Yanju gently comforted him and promised that patience was necessary. The moonless night would arrive soon enough. Once the ritual was completed, and Mina became hers completely, then Hansu could do whatever he wanted with Jong Minho afterward. Haechansu immediately looked excited and asked whether she truly promised him that. Etanyanju smiled warmly. Of course. It was a gift from his mother. Then suddenly, Hansu quietly spoke another name, Mara. The instant Han Yanju heard that word, her expression froze completely. She immediately ordered him never to say that name again. Mara no longer existed. Now she was Han Yanju. And soon, she would be reborn once more as Jong Mina. Her eyes slowly darkened with obsession, as she declared that neither the Great Demon King nor the 12 Black Thrones would stop her this time. No matter what happened, she absolutely would not fail again. After a while, Jong Minya approached the Nox
How
agency
many
building
demons
and
are
took a
here?
deep breath. She told herself that she could do this. Gathering her courage, she stepped inside. Han Yongju immediately called for everyone's attention and announced that from today onward, Jong Minya would officially become part of their family. She reminded everyone that they had already seen Minya all over social media and proudly declared that she would become the center of Nox Agency's new idol group, Zara. One trainee named Hein frowned deeply and questioned how such a decision could happen so suddenly. She had trained for years to earn the center position. Han Yongju calmly replied that Hein had indeed worked hard, but the decision had already been made. She instructed Hein to help Minya adjust. As soon as they were alone, Haechan's frustration exploded. She bitterly asked whether this was all because of political connections. She pointed out that Minya was the daughter of a mayoral candidate, and accused her of stealing the position that she had worked 4 years to obtain. Minya immediately tried to explain that it was not like that, but Haechan refused to listen. In a burst of anger, she slapped Minya across the face. Minya grabbed her cheek as blood slowly appeared from the scratch. Haechan shouted that everyone would see how far connections could take someone. At that same moment, Han Yongju opened her office door. Han Shan was sitting nearby watching a monitor. He excitedly pointed at the screen and called for his mother.
Enjoy fee-free banking in a welcoming space. Part bank, part cafe, all in one place.
We got to go in there. Okay, dog, I don't know. Yeah.
Baby Yoda!
Star Wars: The Mandalorian and Grogu, rated PG-13. Now,
Han Yong-ju looked over and
I was Grogu.
immediately became furious.
My
In her
bad.
eyes, He-chan was worse than an insect. That foolish girl had dared to damage her precious vessel. The anger hidden beneath her calm expression was so intense that even Han Shan felt chills. Meanwhile, in a nearby park, Lavis was sitting together with Xion and Street. Xion remarked that Nox Agency was one of the most famous agencies in the country. Street confidently stated that she knew plenty about the human world, after spending 200 years observing it. Lavis folded his arms and stated that if becoming
So I was right. She's like 300 or plus more years. Damn, old ass, old ass motherfucker.
idol was truly Minya's wish, then it was none of his concern. However, Han Yong-ju and the people around her continued to irritate him. He could not sense demonic energy from them, yet something about them felt wrong. Street warned him that powerful demons who lived in the human world for centuries could completely conceal their demonic presence. Lavis agreed that they were suspicious. The conversation soon shifted toward restoring Lavis's powers. Street proudly revealed that she had finally discovered a method to restore the abilities of the demon bloodstone. Lavis immediately became interested. Since his powers remained incomplete, even insignificant humans constantly interfered with him. He ordered Street and servant number 1, Xion, to investigate Han Yong-ju and her children. Street enthusiastically accepted the mission. Xion protested against being called a servant, but nobody paid attention to him. Lavis simply informed him that arguing was pointless. Xion could only sigh in defeat. Later that evening, Xion walked alone through the streets. Tears rolled down her face as she struggled to accept what had happened. 4 years of hard work had disappeared overnight. Suddenly, the sound of a blade cutting through the air echoed behind her. She froze. Slowly turning around, she saw Han Young approaching her. Fear immediately spread through her body. Hyun nervously apologized and claimed that she had only acted out of anger. She insisted that she never meant any serious harm to Minya. Before she could finish speaking, Han Young suddenly attacked. Blood splattered into the air. His eyes showed no emotion as he quietly asked why she had struck Minya's face. His mother disliked seeing her vessel damaged. Years before these events, Han Yongju had once lived an entirely different life. She had a loving husband. Hidden beneath a nearby sewer cover, however, something else was watching. Mara observed the happy family with cold eyes. That night, Han Yongju awoke suddenly to find Mara standing before her bed. Before she could react, Mara seized control of her body. Terrified, Han Yongju fought desperately to protect her children, but Mara overwhelmed her completely. When her husband woke up in confusion, Mara looked at him with disgust. She grabbed him by the throat and threw him out of the window. His scream echoed through the night before everything became silent. After taking Haechanju's body, Mara's hatred only grew. She viewed humanity as disposable toys. Even her own children meant nothing to her. During the birth of the twins, she cursed constantly and blamed the pain on her enemies. She kicked doctors, insulted everyone around her, and treated her newborn children with complete indifference. Whenever Haechanzu approached her, she rejected him without hesitation. She considered the twins nothing more than tools that would one day protect her while she searched for the perfect vessel. Deep inside, Mara never forgot her true goal. One day she would obtain a body capable of containing her soul completely. She would gather beauty, youth, and power for herself, and eventually take revenge against all those who had opposed her. In present, after Haechana's attack, Detective Cha and Detective Park Seon-hoon arrived at Nox Agency to investigate the incident. Mara pretended to be devastated by the tragedy, and acted like a caring director who treated every trainee as family. Detective Cha questioned her carefully while Detective Park Seon-hoon silently observed the entire situation. Something about the family felt unnatural. Han-soo remained close to his mother, constantly watching everyone with unsettling eyes. Although no evidence existed, Detective Park Seon-hoon felt that something much darker was hidden behind the polished image of Nox Agency. As soon they left the office, a disgusting liquid mixed with countless insects poured out of Han Yongju's mouth. The insects crawled across the floor before disappearing into the shadows. Mara clicked her tongue in annoyance and complained about the detectives. She wondered why they kept digging into everything, and how much money somebody must have paid them to investigate so aggressively. She cursed the authorities for allowing such pests to wander around freely. Han-so calmly hugged her and told her not to worry. The detectives would eventually give up. Mara frowned and touched her face. This body was already beginning to rot. The thought of Han-young damaging her future vessel still infuriated her. Han-so reassured her once again that he would prepare everything. The following day, the trainees gathered together. News about Haechan's attack had already spread throughout the agency. Everyone whispered among themselves, calling Haechan crazy. Han-soo stepped forward and announced that beginning tomorrow, all members of Zera would move into the dormitory. According to him, the atmosphere needed improvement after such an incident. Living together would help them become closer and safer. Jong Minhye looked surprised. She asked whether moving into a dorm was really necessary. Han Su stared at her for a moment and asked whether there was any reason to refuse. Minhye immediately thought about her mother and brother. If she moved out, they would be left alone with Jung Tasik. He told her not to worry and simply obey the agency's decision. Behind his smile, however, he was thinking that any damage to Mara's vessel would result in someone's death. Reluctantly, Minhye agreed and promised to prepare her belongings.
I'm in high school and I have absolutely no idea what I want to do for my...
Well, that's just on you, brother Gee. That's just on you, brother Gee.
Meanwhile, at home, loud screams echoed through the house. Xian was desperately lifting dumbbells while sweating heavily. Lavis Vindica watched him with complete disappointment. According to Lavis, this pathetic display could hardly be called training. The
8 pounds? Bro, how weak do you have to be? 8 pounds? And you're in high school? That's crazy, bro. Bro, that's insane. How? What do you mean you can't carry 8 pounds? That's just light work. Tell me that shit ain't light work. That's just light work, bro. That's just light work. I think, at best, I don't know how much I can carry.
demonic energy inside Xian was gradually increasing, but his physical abilities remained terrible. Even if Xian could intimidate ordinary humans with demonic energy, he would stand no chance against a true demonic beast. Lavis cursed Banbei once again. If Banbei wanted to use people, he should have at least explained how to control the demon bloodstone. He remembered a letter Banbei had sent earlier. The letter supposedly explained everything about the stone and even contained additional gifts. Unfortunately, Lavis had torn it into pieces without reading it. Now he was beginning to suspect that the answer he needed might have been inside that letter. Suddenly, Street came running toward them while shouting loudly. She almost tripped over herself in her hurry. Lavis immediately noticed that she was running on 2 legs again, and asked what the problem was this time. Street excitedly revealed her findings. Han Yongju was not human at all. She was actually Mara Bellix, the Witch of Greed and one of the 12 Black Thrones. Xian nearly dropped the dumbbells in shock. Street explained that Mara had possessed a human body and had been hiding in the human world for many years. Lavis immediately understood why the woman felt familiar. He smirked and stated that he had finally found where that troublesome witch had disappeared to. Street then began recalling stories she had heard about Mara and Aeneas. Long ago, many young demons admired Aeneas because of her beauty and elegance. They believed every word spoken by the future queen carried wisdom and truth. Even her blessings were famous throughout the demon realm. Mara, however, despised constantly being compared to her. Whenever someone praised Aeneas, Mara became furious. She once threatened a young demon girl simply because the child admired Aeneas more than her. According to rumors, Mara's jealousy eventually pushed her to commit crimes against the demon realm itself. She stole a source of demonic souls and fled before she could be punished. Ever since then, she had hidden somewhere in the human world. Xian adjusted his glasses and wondered why Mara had approached Zhang Minhye specifically. Maybe she somehow knew that Minhye's body was being used by Lavis Vendica. Lavis immediately rejected the idea. If Mara truly knew his identity, she would never have ignored him for so long. Nevertheless, he admitted that the situation was dangerous. In his current weakened state, he could not defeat Mara directly. Her children were probably powerful as well. Street agreed and declared that they needed to strengthen the demon bloodstone immediately. She announced the beginning of the first stage of their witch hunt. Before confronting Mara, they needed to cleanse the area and gather information. Elsewhere, Seo Juhee and Zhang Minhye were shopping together. Seo Juhee still felt uneasy about the idol contract. Ever since Minhye entered Nox's agency, nothing but trouble seemed to follow her. She quietly suggested that if Minhye wanted to quit, she should say so now. Minhye smiled and reassured her mother. According to the police, Hee-chan's attacker would eventually be caught. Everything would be fine. Seo Juhee sadly reminded her daughter that she had always dreamed of becoming a veterinarian. Minhye looked toward a shelf filled with pet supplies and silently remembered that dream. However, dreams required time, and time was something she did not have. She wanted to save her family as quickly as possible. She wanted to free her mother and brother from Zhang Tasik's control. Becoming an idol offered an opportunity to earn enough money to change their lives. She told her mother that dreams could change, and that she would become successful enough to protect everyone. Seo Chunye's eyes filled with sadness. She admitted that if she had never remarried, perhaps none of this suffering would have happened. Minhye immediately grabbed her mother's hand and told her not to blame herself. After her father's death, raising 2 children alone had been incredibly difficult. Nobody could have predicted how much Jong Tusik would change after marriage. He had once appeared kind and trustworthy. They had all been deceived. Seju Chunya nearly cried, but Minya smiled brightly and asked her mother to wait a little longer. Soon everything would improve. Later that day, Lavis, Street and Sean visited an amusement park as part of Street's training plan. Lavis staggered away from a roller coaster, looking completely destroyed. Shine could barely contain his laughter. He asked whether demons normally vomited so enthusiastically. Lavis immediately shouted that the problem had nothing to do with being a demon. The food he ate earlier must have been spoiled. Shine pointed out that Lavis was still wiping vomit from his mouth while saying that. Lavis cursed the human world and declared that whoever invented roller coasters deserved eternal punishment. After some time, they all arrived in front of an old building surrounded by dark, dried-up trees.
Yeah, it was roller
Lavis glanced
coaster.
around before
That's funny
asking whether
spot.
Street was certain this was the place. Street confidently replied that it was. One of the demons imprisoned in the human world had recently escaped observation, but her senses had eventually tracked him down. When Lavis asked for the demon's name, Street explained that it was Scream, a demon who converted human screams into magical power. Every cry of terror and suffering became fuel for him. Because of that, the best way to lure him out was to use someone capable of producing truly excellent screams. Lavis immediately turned toward Xian with a satisfied look. Shane instantly backed away and protested that he had never screamed from fear in his life. Lavis ignored him completely and dragged him toward the
Well,
entrance.
buddy,
Street
yeah, you
remained
have.
outside to guard the area while wishing them luck. The two entered the building and slowly looked around. Shane nervously examined the shadows while Lavis remained unimpressed. To him, the decorations looked harmless and childish. Shane insisted that the place felt strange, and that Street's stories had already made him nervous. Lavis reminded him that they were hunting a demon, not running away from decorations. Suddenly, one of the hanging decorations dropped from the ceiling directly in front of them. The unexpected sight caused Lavis himself to let out a loud scream. Cheyenne stared at him in disbelief before grabbing his arm and asking whether he had actually been frightened. Lavis immediately denied it and claimed that he had only been testing the enemy's reaction. Cheyenne adjusted his glasses and pointed out that it was probably the first scream Lavis had ever produced in his life. Annoyed, Lavis decided to explain the real purpose behind their mission. Whenever evil appeared in the human world, the demon Bloodstone released small amounts of power. Human evil worked slowly, but demonic evil was far more concentrated. If he absorbed the malice of demons, his strength would recover.
Who's knocking on my door?
What's spaghetti?
Spaghetti. What's that?
Spaghetti. Pasta.
Pasta. ¿Con qué?
With shrimp and broccoli.
Oh, that's you, Diana? You look like Suri for a second. I'm like, what the heck? Yo. You look like Suri for a second. What the heck? Bro, Diana looks like... Yo, guys, I got myself food. I got pasta, broccoli, and shrimp. Hold on, let me take a piss. I'll be right back, y'all. Let me take a piss. Why is it ring? What? Holy Alright, Sonians, I'm back.
However, much faster. A sinister voice suddenly echoed throughout the building. The voice described Lavis's scream as sweet and pure, like fresh blood and a newborn's first cry. Sean froze immediately. From the darkness emerged the demon Scream, whose eyes were fixed greedily on the frightened boy. Scream declared that Sean's screams were delicious and demanded more. Before the demon could touch him, Lavis stepped forward and grabbed his arm. He coldly informed Scream that Shine belonged to him. Scream laughed and questioned whether a weak human could stop him. With a casual motion, he threw Lavis aside and seized Cheyenne. Xian screamed in terror as Scream absorbed the sound with delight. The demon's body swelled with power. Lavis clicked his tongue in annoyance. His human body remained weak, and even moving properly required effort. Nevertheless, he rushed forward once more. Scream released demonic energy around Xian and encouraged him to scream even louder. Lavis shouted for Xian to stop because every scream strengthened the demon.
Game.
Bro's the best person to be screaming, bro.
Terrified, Xian desperately covered his mouth with both hands. Scream mocked him and claimed he would tear out those frightened eyes and wear them as decorations. Lavis continued dodging attacks while searching for an opportunity to strike. Despite his efforts, his weakened body struggled to keep up. Scream eventually grabbed him and pinned him down. The demon condensed countless screams into a sharp weapon and declared that he would use it to carve open Lavis's skull. Then he extended a claw toward Lavis's right eye. However, the instant the claw touched him, it shattered into pieces. Scream stared in confusion. Lavis slowly raised his head as a strange light emerged from his eye. At that moment, he remembered a letter from Bambay. The demon bloodstone had been modified to transfer the power of his soul directly into his human body. However, its true potential would only awaken after the stone's shell was broken. Realizing the truth, Lavis cursed Bambay for hiding such an important detail. Scream could not understand what was happening. Lavis calmly informed him that he was far from an ordinary human. Then he ordered Xian to stop holding back and scream as loudly as possible. Although confused, Xian chose to trust him. Taking a deep breath, he unleashed an enormous scream. Scream laughed happily and absorbed every bit of it. However, while the demon fed on the screams, the demon bloodstone was absorbing Scream's own demonic malice. More screams echoed through the building, and more power flowed into Lavis. Scream proudly declared that Lavis's arrogance would destroy him because he was only making him stronger. Lavis smirked and pointed out that Scream slowed down every time he absorbed screams. Before the demon could react, Lavis launched himself forward. His speed had increased dramatically. The shell of the demon bloodstone finally shattered completely. Demonic power surged through his body. Lavis struck Scream directly in the head, releasing a violent explosion of mana that shook the entire building. As the energy settled, Lavis realized that his strength was finally beginning to return. Human medicine and training could never compare to this. The awakened demon bloodstone could now absorb demonic malice and convert it into power. Every demon he defeated would help restore the overwhelming strength he once possessed. Shinasan nervously asked whether the demon had somehow swallowed him. Lavis simply smirked and replied that they would move on to hunting the next demon. Meanwhile, Minya arrived at the dormitory provided by Nox Agency. After thanking Han Young for escorting her, she entered her new room. Han Young reminded her that she was not allowed to leave until training officially began. Although nervous, Minya promised that she would do her best. Once the door closed, she stood alone and tried to gather her courage. She reminded herself that everything she was doing was for her mother and brother. She needed to succeed and earn enough money to free them from their miserable life. Elsewhere, Mara Veliax watched through a hidden camera with a pleased smile. She extended her hand through the screen and asked Hansu whether Zhang Minhe would obey after becoming her perfect vessel. Hansu assured his mother that everything would proceed according to plan. Satisfied, Mara ordered him to begin preparations immediately. She intended to claim Minha's body and be reborn completely. Outside the building, Street congratulated Lavis on the return of his magical power. She knelt respectfully and declared that she would follow the Lord of Blood to the very edge of darkness. Lavis told her to stop exaggerating and focus on something useful instead. He ordered her to locate Mara Veliax and continue gathering information. Once enough of his strength returned, he intended to hunt her down personally. Street immediately accepted the command and promised to begin the search. Far away, another demon named Apep Shiel watched humanity with amusement. Standing beside a smoking man, he encouraged the man to continue poisoning himself. Lavis continued his hunt for demons hiding in the human world. Suddenly, he grabbed Apep Shiel by the head and slammed him into the ground. The demon cried out in fear, unable to understand what was happening. Lavis complained about the disgusting smell coming from him, and remarked that this demon survived by feeding on the evil energy generated by drunk people and smokers. Xion watched in shock as Lavis casually tore through another demon. Seeing demon after demon appear, Xion admitted that he never imagined there were so many of them hiding among humans. Lavis explained that demons who escape into the human world gradually lose their magic power because they are separated from their homeland. To survive, they must find substitutes for demonic energy, usually feeding on human desires, fears, addictions, and suffering. Shichun slowly began to understand that many supernatural stories among humans were not entirely false. Lavis released a small amount of mana and Shichun immediately sensed the difference. His magical power was returning, although it was still far from his original strength. The demon bloodstone was finally beginning to function properly. Shichun worried about Street being sent alone to investigate Mara, but Lavis dismissed the concern. Street possessed very little magical power, making her difficult to detect. While flying through the forest in the form of a bat, Street suddenly noticed something strange. She captured a worm-like creature, and quickly realized that it was infused with Mara's magic. Excited by the discovery, she rushed to report back to Lavis. Meanwhile, Mara Veliax traveled with Han Young, Han Su and the unconscious Zhang Minya. Han Young excitedly praised herself for knocking Minya out, while Mara urged them to move faster. Street soon arrived carrying the parasite, and showed it to Lavis. After examining it, Lavis immediately recognized it as one of Mara's parasites. He explained that when Mara crossed into the human world she lost her original body, and was forced to possess a human vessel. The appearance of parasites meant that her current vessel was failing. Mara desperately needed a new body. Xian immediately connected this to Zhang Minya and asked whether Mara had targeted her because she wanted her body. Lavis admitted that the possibility was very high. Mara had always been obsessed with youth and beauty, and Minya perfectly matched her preferences. The conversation drifted toward age and history. Lavis casually remarked that Mara was far older than his own mother. Curious, Xian asked how old Aeneas Vindica actually was. Lavis answered that in human terms she was roughly 6,375 years old. Xion nearly collapsed from shock. Lavis then recalled a childhood memory when Varkan had shown him the human world. Humans had been constructing massive pyramids, and Varkan proudly insisted they were monuments built in his honor. Banbei had immediately corrected him, explaining that humans were actually worshipping the heavenly god Ra. Varkan had responded by claiming that because he defeated Ra once, the monuments should belong to him instead. The memory only confirmed how ridiculous his uncle truly was. Street interrupted and reminded Lavis that Zhang Minya was in danger. Lavis finally acknowledged the seriousness of the situation. If Mara succeeded in her ritual, Minya could lose her body entirely. Far away, Mara led her children to an abandoned construction site, built around a hidden crack between the demon world and the human world. The moonless night had arrived.
Mama. I'm gonna have to take a shit later, bro. I'm eating pasta, bro. I'm fucking taking a big ass shit later.
The perfect time for her plans. Inside the building lay numerous corpses covered with devouring flowers. Standing among them was Bauer Hilt. The former survivor of the Hilt clan immediately recognized Mara Veliax, and was furious at her presence. He mocked her fall from power and declared that the territory belonged to him now. Mara showed little interest in his complaints. She openly admitted that she was weaker than before and that maintaining her human vessel was becoming increasingly difficult. However, she had prepared for this by creating Han Young and Han Su. Bauer mocked her dependence on children, but Mara simply ordered him to leave with his flowers. Insulted by being called weeds, Bauer attacked. Before he could accomplish anything, Han Su casually kicked him in the face and sent him flying. Mara laughed proudly at her son's strength. A flashback revealed how she had raised the twins. She fed them water stolen from Zarnahim, the deepest valley in the demon world and the location of the source of demonic souls. The water contained immense magical power. Mara had stolen it after Gamadare Vindica claimed ownership over it. Her plan was simple. The twins would protect her until she found the perfect vessel. At the same time, Street tracked Mara's scent through the forest. She led Lavis and Shine directly toward the ritual site. Shine desperately begged Lavis to save Zhangminhimia. Lavis grabbed him by the neck and dragged him along, claiming that Shine would make an excellent human shield if things became dangerous. Street begged Lavis to destroy Mara once and for all. When they arrived, they found Minhia lying unconscious within a ritual circle while Mara prepared the transfer ceremony. Bauer had already been reduced to a kneeling servant begging for mercy. Han Su requested permission to handle him personally, further humiliating the former Hilt survivor. Then a voice echoed through the room. Lavis had arrived. Looking over the gathering, he mocked them all at once. Mara the fugitive, Bauer the traitor who abandoned his family, and the half-demon twins. According to Lavis, the four of them deserved each other perfectly. Mara immediately recognized him. Han Su stared in surprise at Zhang Minhia's brother. Nearby, Xian looked around and finally noticed the piles of corpses surrounding the ritual site. Lavis calmly pointed out the Youngmu's corpse hanging on the wall, and remarked that if he had not saved Shishan earlier, Shishan might have ended up among him. The The reality of the demon world finally became undeniable. Shishan realized he had crossed into a nightmare far beyond anything he had imagined. Bauer looked at Lavis with displeasure and asked whether he knew Young Mu. The realization struck him immediately. If Lavis knew Young Mu, then he must have been the one who ruined all of his plans. Mara Veliax narrowed her eyes and remarked that she had already suspected he was more than an ordinary human. Hansu focused on Lavis and stated that his eyes never lied. He asked his mother whether she recognized him. Before Mara could answer, Street stepped forward and proudly declared that this was Lord Lavis Vindica, the noble and precious only son of the great Demon King, the executioner, who had slaughtered the Bauer family and been cast down into the human world. Mara froze in shock upon hearing the name. Bauer was equally stunned and immediately remembered the terrifying demon who had exterminated his kind. For a brief moment, Bauer's fear turned into excitement. Lavis was no longer the unstoppable monster of the demon world. He was trapped inside a weak human body. Bauer convinced himself that this was the perfect chance to avenge his family. Mara cursed Aeneas Vindica and accused her of interfering even now by sending her son into the human world. Lavis calmly evaluated the situation and realized he could not easily handle Mara, Hansu and Han Young at the same time while also worrying about Bauer attacking from behind. Deciding the parasite demon was not worth his attention, he ordered Bauer to leave. Bauer refused and screamed that Lavis had no authority over him anymore. Lavis coldly warned him that he would die if he stayed. Then he declared that all demons in the human world should be informed that Lavis Vindica, the Lord of Blood, had descended. Anyone who wished to live should remain hidden until he returned to full strength. Bauer's courage vanished instantly. Terrified that Lavis could still use magic in a human body, he fled the area. Mara began coughing blood from the strain of using her deteriorating host body. Hansu rushed to support her while she wiped the blood from her lips. Even in that state she remained amused. She wondered what expression Ines would make when her beloved son was torn apart by her children. Lavis replied that he was curious about something as well. He wanted to see Mara's face when she learned her children had died at the hands of the son of the woman she had envied her entire life. Mara ordered Hansu and Han Young to bring her Lavis's tongue. Hansu immediately formed his weapon while Han Young drew her sword and coated it with mana. The twins began arguing almost immediately. Hansu insisted that he would kill Lavis himself while Han Young mocked him and demanded he move aside. Their lack of coordination was obvious. Lavis quickly recognized their weakness. Hansu was arrogant and impulsive while Han Young was cynical and stubborn. He deliberately manipulated them by positioning himself so their attacks interfered with each other. Hansu nearly struck his sister several times and became increasingly frustrated. Han Young mocked him whenever he made mistakes, which only enraged him further. Lavis blocked Han Young's blade and redirected it into Hansu's weapon. Sparks exploded between the two siblings. As the battle continued, Lavis realized the twins possessed tremendous strength despite being half-breeds. Mara had clearly done something unusual to them. Even so, their constant bickering prevented them from using their full potential. At the same time, Street launched herself at Mara. She shouted that she had once respected the Witch of Greed and could not believe how far she had fallen. Mara responded with fury and unleashed enormous tentacles of dark mana. Street was completely outmatched. Even trapped inside a decaying human body, Mara remained one of the 12 Black Thrones.
When you get a little shout out.
Nah, Street, come on now. You're better than this, Street. Come on. I want to see you lock in. I want to see you lock in, Street. Come on. I believe in you.
Street was smashed into a wall and badly injured, yet she continued fighting because she knew Xian was trying to save Zhong Minya. While Street delayed Mara, Xian desperately attacked the magical dome surrounding Minya. The barrier burned and froze him at the same time. His palms turned red and his entire body trembled. He knew he was only a human, but he refused to give up. Again and again he struck the barrier while calling Minya's name. Mara eventually lost patience. She pinned Xian to the ground with a sticky mass of mana and declared that she had wasted enough time. Then she began the final ritual. Multiple seals appeared around Zhang Minha while dark energy filled the room. Mara invoked an ancient vow and poured her soul into the ritual. Purple light filled Minha's eyes as the transfer reached completion. Lavis noticed immediately and realized the situation had become critical. He attempted to break through the twins, but at that exact moment a thin thread of energy wrapped around Hansu. More threads appeared and bound him completely. Tape sealed his mouth and forced him to the floor. The person responsible stepped out from the shadows. It was Jin Jae. She signaled for silence and asked whether it was really acceptable for them to torture their brother Lavis like this. Before anyone could react further, Mara's soul completed its transfer. The spirit abandoned Han Yongju's dying body and entered Zhang Minhia completely. Han Yongju's body collapsed lifelessly to the floor. Mara slowly stood up inside her new vessel. A delighted laugh echoed through the building. After centuries of greed and obsession, she had finally obtained the perfect body. Looking at her reflection, Mara smiled triumphantly and declared that this beauty would belong to her forever. Xian screamed in horror while Street desperately called out to Minhia. Lavis's expression darkened as he realized he had arrived too late. Hidden nearby,
no.
Jinjay peeked around the corner. Even in such a dangerous situation, she found herself admiring Lavis and became flustered by how incredible he looked. However, she quickly forced herself to focus. Lavis was in danger, and simply watching was not an option. Meanwhile, Hansu struggled against the restraints binding him. Han Young noticed something was wrong and immediately searched for whoever had interfered. Lavis used the distraction to continue attacking.
Oh
Han
yeah.
Young cried out for her mother, while Hansu shouted in frustration as he tried to free himself. Mara looked toward her children and spread her arms proudly. She asked how everyone liked her new appearance. Hansu immediately praised her and declared that she looked even better than before. Shijan, however, could only stare in despair. To him it seemed that Zhang Minya had already been lost. Street suddenly shouted that there was still hope. She explained that because it was a moonless night, the boundary between the human world and the demon world was unstable. Magic, contracts, and souls became fragile during such a night. Until the moonless night ended, Mara's possession ritual could not be considered fully complete. Zhang Minya's soul should still exist somewhere inside the body. A moment later, Minya's voice suddenly cried out. She begged her brother Minyo to save her because her body was moving on its own. Lavis immediately recognized that it was Minya's soul struggling from within. Mara laughed mockingly and copied Minya's behavior. Finding amusement in the situation, Lavis became furious at her cruelty. Mara ordered Hansu and Han Young to stop playing around and kill everyone. Hansu eagerly accepted. Lavis gritted his teeth in frustration. He had been humiliated repeatedly by opponents he considered inferior. Meanwhile, Mara calmly discussed eating someone to recover her strength. She licked her lips while examining Xian and Street, deciding which one would make the better meal. Suddenly, a small object on the floor attracted Mara's attention. Before she could react, a miniature projection of Lavis appeared from it and released a burst of brilliant mana. Mara screamed and covered her face, unable to endure the overwhelming stench from the energy. At the same moment, someone rushed through the battlefield. Street's restraints were removed, and the spikes pinning her to the wall vanished. The person helping her was Jinjay. She quickly freed Shane as well and handed him a strange weapon filled with demonic energy. Both Shane and Street were shocked. Street immediately recognized it as a weapon connected to the power of the demon world, and wondered how Jinjay had obtained such a thing. The moment Xian touched the weapon, demonic energy flooded through his body. His heart raced violently, his breathing became unstable, and his mind felt as though it was being torn apart. While he struggled to endure the power, Street charged Mara once more. Mara mocked her, dismissing her new equipment as nothing more than toys. Street retaliated fiercely, and even managed to cut through one of Mara's tentacles. For a brief moment it seemed effective, but Mara quickly adapted. Her tentacles hardened, making them far more difficult to damage. Street realized the longer Mara remained inside Minya's body, the stronger she would become. If they did not act soon, there would be no way to stop her. During the battle, Street noticed something important. An umbilical cord-like connection still linked Mara's new body to Han Yongju's original corpse. She immediately understood what it meant. Because Zhang Minhia was an ordinary human, Mara's soul had not yet completely settled into the new vessel. The ritual was still ongoing. If they could destroy the connection and the magic circle maintaining it, they might still save Minhia. Xian finally recovered from the effects of the weapon and examined the situation carefully. He noticed the same connection and instantly began analyzing the magic circle. To everyone else it looked like incomprehensible magic, but to him it resembled mathematics. Jaechan transformed the circle into equations inside his mind. Shapes became formulas, mana flow became graphs, the barrier became a mathematical structure that could be solved.
Ooh, that's not smart boy! You're so smart!
Oh
Creating
yeah, I
custom
know you
clothing
were
with
paying
Tapstitch is
attention.
simple. Start by choosing a
Shut up. My show's on.
He rapidly analyzed cubic functions, mana vectors, and symmetrical matrices. Using the demonic weapon as an interface, he calculated the weakness hidden within the ritual. Street was astonished. Empowered by Jinjay's weapon, Shichan was effectively hacking a magical ritual using mathematics. While Street desperately bought time against Mara, Shichan completed his calculations. He discovered the critical point hidden within the structure. Smiling confidently, he aimed the weapon at the exact location and pulled the trigger. A beam of demonic energy exploded from the weapon. The recoil threw Shubian across the floor, but the attack struck perfectly. The dome shattered. The magic circle collapsed. Mara immediately sensed something was wrong and turned around in shock. Shubian laughed triumphantly and declared that the formula had been proven correct. The circle maintaining the possession ritual had been destroyed. The flow of energy began fading, and Mara instantly panicked. Her transfer into Zhang Minha's body was still incomplete. Street praised Xian and said he had done more than enough. The rest was her responsibility. Ignoring her injuries, she rushed toward Han Yongju's corpse. Mara immediately realized her intention and screamed in terror. Street slashed the corpse with her claws, damaging the connection between the two bodies. Mara became hysterical. She rushed toward the corpse and desperately clutched it, declaring that it was her precious body and that she could not afford to lose even a single piece of it. Street slowly stood back up and declared that greed always grew like a tree until it became too heavy and eventually broke under its own weight. Mara flew into a rage, yet Street only smiled. She declared that Mara's greed would burn away together with everything she had stolen. Then she looked toward Lavis and asked whether she was right. At that moment Mara finally noticed something horrifying. Standing behind her was Lavis. Han-Su and Han Young had both been completely subdued. Han-Su apologized helplessly to his mother, explaining that Lavis had suddenly become much stronger after absorbing the mysterious red smoke. Mara stared in disbelief. Her eyes widened as she remembered the earlier explosion and the strange smoke released into the battlefield. A terrible realization dawned on her. That smoke had acted as a catalyst, accelerating Lavis's recovery and allowing him to regain a significant portion of his power. Jinjae remained hidden behind a pillar, her face red with embarrassment. She thought it was fortunate that she had taken blood from Lavis's original body. At first she had planned to treasure it forever as a personal keepsake, but circumstances had changed. Bambei had explained that Lavis's current human body contained a specially modified demon bloodstone. If the blood from his original body was returned to him, he could temporarily recover a portion of his former strength. Watching the battle unfold, Jinjae hoped he would accept her gift. She wanted to see the terrifying Demon King Prince everyone feared. The moment the blood was absorbed, a single horn emerged from Lavis's forehead. It had been a very long time since he had felt such freedom and power flowing through him. Mara immediately realized something had changed. Furious, she cursed Han-Su and Han Young as worthless failures. 2 children against one weakened demon, yet they still could not defeat him. She released additional umbilical cords from her body and connected them to both twins, pouring power into them. Instantly their strength surged. Han-Su shattered his restraints and launched a chain toward Lavis. Together they attacked from both sides, but Lavis effortlessly blocked every strike. Mara joined the assault as well, sending countless tentacles toward him. While attacking, she demanded to know why he was risking his life for an ordinary human girl who was not even his real sister. Lavis parried another attack and smiled. He answered that it was because the cake was delicious. Mara stared at him in confusion, unable to understand what he meant. Lavis explained that the cake Zhongminjia had fed him was not simply food, it was the taste of heaven itself. Han-Su called him insane. A demon speaking about heaven made no sense. Lavis then asked whether the twins had ever shared cake with each other. Han Young immediately replied that she would have thrown cake in her brother's face instead. At that moment Lavis cut across her neck. Blood splashed onto his face, and he instinctively tasted it. The moment he did, memories began flowing into his mind. He saw the miserable childhood of Han-Su and Han Young. Han Young proudly showed excellent grades, while Han-Su cleaned the house and tried to be useful. Mara only called them annoying insects. When Han-Su complained of hunger, she told him to drink water and stop bothering her. Nothing they did earned affection. One day they accompanied Mara to a cafe. There Mara became jealous of a beautiful young woman receiving attention from men. She complained bitterly and blamed her children for her own unhappiness. Wanting to help her mother, Han Young deliberately spilled coffee onto the woman. The victim became angry, and Mara immediately rushed over pretending to be kind and concerned. After leaving the cafe, Mara hugged Han Young and praised her for the first time. Han Young was overwhelmed with happiness. Han-Su became jealous and begged for a chance to earn praise too. From that day onward, the twins learned a terrible lesson. Hurting people Mara disliked earned affection. Han Young stained her blade with blood again and again, believing it was the only way to receive her mother's love. Every cruel act was rewarded with praise. Every victim brought another smile from Mara. The children slowly became monsters because they desperately wanted affection from the only person they cared about. Lavis finished viewing the memories and laughed coldly. He commented that Mara had certainly raised her children well. Han Young exploded with rage and attacked. Han-Su joined her while Mara screamed for them to kill him immediately. Lavis simply sighed. This was the true nature of demons corrupted by obsession and greed. In one swift motion he swung his sword and severed Han-Su's arm. Blood exploded into the air. Han-Su collapsed to the ground screaming in agony. Mara was frightened by the look in Lavis's eyes. He no longer resembled the weakened human she had been fighting. He looked like the executioner who once terrorized the demon world. Han Young continued attacking. Lavis shattered one of her swords and casually remarked that she seemed concerned about her brother. Han-Su immediately screamed that everything was her fault, and demanded she kill Lavis before he died. The siblings instantly began blaming each other. Lavis smiled. His earlier observations had been correct. The twins could never truly cooperate because their mother's love had turned them into rivals. Seeing an opening, he attacked again. Han Young realized she could not block the strike. Without hesitation, she grabbed Han-Su and used him as a shield.
still remember our first session. We were like, let's sit down.
Gang, why did I mute it? Alright.
Lavis's blade carved a massive wound across Hansu's body. He collapsed, blood pouring from the injury as he desperately cried for his mother. Mara looked at her dying son and merely clicked her tongue in annoyance. She called him useless trash and ordered Han Young to stop wasting time. Hansu continued begging for help. His voice grew weaker and weaker. Finally, his eyes closed forever. Even then, Mara did not care. Her attention remained fixed entirely on the battle. Han Young received support from Mara's tentacles and continued fighting. Lavis knocked the tentacles aside and assessed the situation. One twin was dead, but Mara's transfer into Minya's body was nearly complete. If he waited too long, saving Minya would become impossible. Lavis suddenly grabbed Han Young's sword with his bare hand. Before she could react, he pulled her forward and exposed her neck. Then he bit deeply into her throat. Han Young screamed as he absorbed her blood. Mara watched in confusion and growing fear. When Lavis finished, Han Young collapsed from exhaustion. He could feel tremendous power flooding into his body. By absorbing blood beyond the limits of his human vessel, he was forcing himself to become stronger. The strain was tearing his body apart, but he accepted the pain. Without hesitation, he charged Mara. Countless tentacles rushed toward him. Lavis cut through them all. Mara's panic increased with every step he took. She screamed for him to stop. Lavis ignored her. His body felt as though it would explode from the stress. Yet he continued advancing. Finally, he reached her and slashed through the umbilical cord connecting her to Han Yongju's corpse. Mara screamed in absolute terror. The final connection was severed. Before she could react, Lavis grabbed her by the throat and slammed her to the ground. He tightened his grip and calmly informed her that her rotten life was over. Mara struggled desperately and insisted she could not die at the hands of someone like him. He offered her a chance to live. If she voluntarily left Zhang Minya's body immediately, he would spare her. Mara stared at him in shock. Lavis swore upon the honor of his father, the great demon king Gamudor Vindika. She quickly realized what was happening. Lavis was worried that if she resisted until death, she might destroy Minya's body as well. A smile slowly spread across her face. She pretended to accept the offer and claimed that the bloodline of the great demon king would never lie. She requested proof of his sincerity. If he truly intended to honor his promise, he should throw away his weapon first. After a moment of silence, the blood sword in Lavis's hand dissolved into red mist. He released his grip and calmly ordered Mara to leave Zhang Minya's body. Mara frowned as if she were preparing to keep her promise. For a brief moment she even looked obedient. Then a sly smirk appeared on her face. The next instant she exploded out of Zhang Minya's mouth and lunged toward Lavis, calling him a stupid fool. However, Lavis had expected betrayal from the very beginning. His arm instantly transformed into a demonic claw and grabbed Mara's escaping soul before she could flee. Her eyes widened in disbelief. Lavis calmly remarked that it was embarrassing how easily one of the 12 Black Thrones had fallen for such an obvious trap. The truth was that he never knew any safe method to separate her soul from Minya's body. He had simply needed Mara to leave voluntarily. Realizing she had been deceived, Mara shrieked in rage. She demanded to know what happened to the honor of his family, and the oath he swore upon the name of Gamudar Vindika. Lavis answered that he had preserved his honor perfectly. He never promised to let Mara escape. He only promised to spare Minya. With that he began ripping Mara's soul from the body. The witch desperately struggled and begged him to stop. She screamed that she did not want to leave. Lavis merely smirked at the pathetic sight. With one final pull, the last remnants of Mara were torn free from Minya. Minya immediately collapsed unconscious onto the floor while Mara fell beside her as a weakened, disgusting mass of tentacles and slime. Mara immediately switched tactics and began begging for mercy. She promised to obey any command. She swore she would never touch Minya again. While she pleaded, Han Young slowly forced herself to stand. Trembling from exhaustion, she picked up her sword. Seeing this, Mara rejoiced internally. She silently urged her daughter to kill Lavis while his attention was elsewhere. Han Young raised the sword above her head and prepared to strike. Lavis noticed the movement and turned around. Yet before he could react, another blade pierced through Han Young's body. Hansu, somehow still alive despite his mortal wounds, had stabbed his sister. With blood pouring from his mouth, he bitterly declared that it was unfair for her to take all of their mother's praise again. If anyone was going to earn Mara's approval, it would be him. Having spent the last of his strength, Hansu collapsed with a smile. Han Young let out one final breath and fell beside him. The twins died together, victims of the twisted love their mother had taught them. Mara watched both of her children die and felt absolutely nothing. There was no grief, no sadness, only irritation. She furiously cursed Lavis and complained that he had wasted his final chance to escape. Lavis looked at the corpses and remarked that Hansu had spent his entire life crying for his mother, only to die in such a ridiculous way. Mara immediately returned to begging for her own life. She insisted she would find another body and disappear forever. She even claimed that she and Enos had once been like sisters. Street listened with disgust. She pointed out that Mara's children had just died, and yet she cared only about saving herself. Was she truly capable of calling herself a mother? Mara coldly replied that children could always be replaced. More could be born whenever she wanted. Lavis finally grew tired of listening. With a single swing he severed Mara's last remaining tentacle. The witch collapsed and wheezed helplessly. Lavis remarked that it was unfortunate such a disgrace had once held the title of one of the 12 Black Thrones. Mara wanted to curse him again, but only broken sounds escaped her mouth. Hatred burned in her eyes. She could not accept defeat at the hands of Inessa's son. Yet it was already over. Lavis stepped on her head. Her body collapsed into a disgusting puddle of slime. As she died, Mara's demonic essence flowed into Lavis's eye and was absorbed. The power of a Black Throne entered him completely. Lavis exhaled deeply. At last, everything was finished. Street approached and congratulated him. Looking at his transformed demonic hand, he could feel immense strength surging through his body. Then he pulled out a handkerchief and covered his nose. The smell left behind by Mara was so vile that he could barely tolerate it. Street glanced sadly at the corpses of Hansol and Han Young. She wondered whether they might have lived normal lives if Mara had never stolen Han Youngju's body. Lavis answered that nobody could know. Even children born to ordinary parents could still be destroyed by greed. At that moment,
Eve's.
Oh, here comes the simp, bro. Here comes the simp.
Jinjae quietly peeked from behind a pillar, smiling in relief now that everything had worked out. She intended to leave before anyone noticed her. Unfortunately for her, Lavis immediately called out. Startled, she panicked and tried hiding again. Lavis sighed and addressed her by another name, Beltia. The moment he spoke that name, Street froze in shock. She explained that Beltia was a legendary weaponsmith from the demon world. She was the youngest daughter of the Martano family, a genius said to appear only once every 3,000 years. She was famous among demon nobles for her unmatched skill in creating magical weapons. Lavis demanded to know why she was following him around. Jinjae finally emerged from hiding and cheerfully explained that Banbei had sent her as a gift. Since the surprise had succeeded, she felt it was time to leave. Before anyone could stop her, she jumped out the window and vanished. Street stared after her in disbelief. She explained that Beltia was notorious even among demon nobles. She was arrogant, talented, unpredictable, and completely obsessed with Lavis. She was practically his personal stalker. Lavis cursed loudly. It became obvious that Banbei had somehow placed Beltia's soul into Jinjae's body. The situation had become even more troublesome than before. Lavis swore that once they returned to the demon world, he would hand Banbei over to Beltia personally, and allow her to torment him forever. Meanwhile, in the demon world, Varkon excitedly described everything that had happened to Ines. He enthusiastically explained how Lavis had bitten Han Young, absorbed her blood, cut off Mara's tentacles, crushed her head, and absorbed her power. Varkon dramatically claimed the whole thing was unbelievably cruel. Ines tried to hide her satisfaction but failed to completely suppress a small smile. Varkon immediately pointed it out. Ines denied being pleased, insisting only that Mara's execution was appropriate punishment for escaping into the human world. Yet she quietly continued drinking the expensive tea sent by the Reuter family. Varkon reassured her that she no longer needed to worry. Now that Lavis could use more of his true power, he would survive whatever came next. Inisa suddenly narrowed her eyes. She demanded to know what exactly Varkon, Banbei, and Gamadar Vindica were plotting. Varkon instantly became nervous. He insisted the great demon king knew nothing. Inisa immediately called him a liar. There was no way Banbei could have implanted the demon bloodstone into Lavis without Gamadar's approval. Then a horrifying realization struck her. She demanded to know whether they intended to use her son as bait to catch Morgus. Varkon happily admitted it. Ines immediately attacked him and began strangling him in fury. She screamed that she should have killed him 1,000 years ago. Varkon desperately argued that Lavis wanted to hunt Morgus himself. Could an uncle ignore his beloved nephew's wishes? Ines responded by biting him. Banbei calmly sat nearby drinking tea. Watching the chaos, he reflected that siblings often behaved like enemies reborn from past lives. As the argument continued, Banbei's thoughts drifted toward the true enemy, Morgus, the god of destruction, the ruler of death itself, the being who wished to devour the human world and reshape the demon world according to his own design. Wherever Morgus was hiding, Banbei knew one thing for certain. Lavis Vindica was already on his way toward him. After returning home, Levis carried Minya in her room and gently laid her on the bed. He watched her silently for a while, before speaking to the lingering consciousness of Zhong Minyo within him. He stated that the debt had finally been repaid. Minyo had given him a body when he arrived in the human world, and now he had saved Minya's life in return. The bedroom door burst open. Zhong Tasik stormed into the room, shouting that Minyo was supposed to be at the training center. Zhong rushed in behind him and immediately asked what had happened to her daughter. Levis calmly lied, claiming that Minya had simply been injured during practice. Tasik immediately began looking for a way to exploit the situation. Rather than worrying about Minya's condition, he started ranting about publicity. He accused Lavis and Jui of deliberately arranging everything because people online kept praising Minya more than him. He ordered his secretary to bring a camera so they could photograph her injuries and spread a story about a stalker attack. In his mind, more sympathy meant more publicity, and more publicity meant more votes. Listening to him, Lavis felt disgust growing stronger with every word. The stench of greed surrounding the man seemed almost physical. The only thing stopping him from breaking Tasik's bones was the fact that murder and assault were crimes in the human world. Before Lavis could react, Jui finally exploded. She shouted at Tasik and ordered him to stop. She demanded to know whether he could even see what condition Munya was in. Tasik turned toward her furiously, but Jui did not back down. She declared that she had believed he would be a good father when she married him. Instead, after her father died, he had seized her inheritance, used her family's influence for his political career, and was now exploiting her daughter for personal gain. She had endured everything for the sake of the children because she did not want them to lose a father a second time. But now she had reached her limit. Tasik screamed back, claiming that he had taken in a woman abandoned by her first husband, and raised children that were not his own. He accused them all of being ungrateful, yet Jui remained firm. She called him a hypocrite, and declared that someone like him had no right to become mayor. She announced that she would no longer remain his puppet. From now on she would be the hand around his throat. Hearing those words, Lavis stared at her in surprise. Until now he had viewed Jui as a weak person. But in that moment she reminded him strongly of Anais, his own mother. Tasik was left speechless. Unable to strike back, he could only scream in frustration while Jui stood her ground. Far away from Korea, at Fort Vulture, a United States military facility in the Middle East, a completely different disaster was unfolding. A demon had slaughtered everyone on the base except for a single terrified soldier. Standing in the control room, the demon stared curiously at the control panel. There were too many buttons, and he wondered which one he should press. The surviving soldier desperately begged him not to touch the missile launch controls. He warned that thousands of innocent people would die if the missiles were fired. The demon considered this for a brief moment before pressing the launch button anyway. He calmly remarked that missiles were made to be used. Immediately, alarms blared throughout the facility. Warning lights flashed across the screens as the launch sequence activated. The soldier stared at him in horror and demanded to know who he was. The demon simply introduced himself as Morgus. Moments later, missiles streaked across the sky toward an Arab nation. A mother and her child looked upward in confusion as a bright object crossed the heavens. Seconds later, a devastating explosion engulfed the area, taking countless lives. Morgus watched the destruction unfold on the monitor, and seemed genuinely fascinated by the result. The horrified soldier cursed him, but Morgus paid no attention. Instead, he summoned his servant Shua, and ordered him to retrieve a certain fragment hidden within the destruction. Shua immediately vanished to carry out the command. Morgus stared at the burning images on the screen and wondered why humans spent so much effort creating such beautiful weapons only to lock them away. To him it seemed wasteful. Yet thanks to those weapons, he had found the fragment without even lifting a finger.
He was considered the spiciest player in the game.
Morgan's just like, you know what? Let me use his weapons because no one else is using them. Oh shit, that was the end. That was low-key tough. That was low-key tough. I want to react more to that shit. But that was low-key tough. That was beautiful right there. That shit was beautiful. Dude, I low-key got a shit. I got a shit so bad. I'm gonna go use the restroom, but I'm gonna play y'all a video. Low-key. What video should I play this thing? Let's see. What should I play for y'all? Alright, BRB.